Chat room. Hello and howdy. How are you doing today? I hope you're all doing very well. Solid life advice from Sholin Monkey in chat. I just think that is good advice. Where's the joke? I did put together a little playlist of dreading short videos for us, and by short I mean like not an hour and a half long, like normal. But I broke my, it wasn't a promise. I never said I promise, for what it's worth. But I totally didn't catch up on the ghost like I said I would, because nice. Today me and Josiah walked around and played Pokemon Go. So I blew off my obligations to you in favor of doing a raid and stuff. Sorry. I apologize. But we will crochet today. Rory, who's a good kitty boy. What a precious baby with the snuggles and the purrs and the whiskers and ears. Rory, you're such a good baby kitty boy. I like your dog. Hello. Hit me. Your resident creepy crochet artist. It's okay, Pokemon Go is more important than us. I just figured you guys wouldn't mind if I didn't do like 8 rows of an amigurumi. If it meant that I got to spend a little bit of time with the Kang. And I did, and it was great. It was really great. We've been having a lot of fun doing Pokemon Go stuff. Can y'all see me? You can see me. Okay, good. I think that I am ready to just get rocking. If I could just get 3 readies in chat, we'll get this show on the road. I have fun water and a regular water today. Pretty hype on that, not gonna lie. I'll be honest, I thought Pokemon Go died. Yo, it's changed so much since I last played. Pokemon Go, get that relaxation. It's been nice. I've been needing, like, we haven't been exercising. All of our cardio lately has been coming from stress. So we decided that it would probably be best if we walked around a little, and the way that we made that more fun was by doing Pokemon Go stuff. Borrow money from pessimists, they don't expect it back. Okay, I have 2 readies. Can I get just 1 more and then we'll be hot to trot? Hell yeah, thank you. All right, here we go. It's been a hot minute since we've watched any dreading, so I'm excited. Let's fucking go, boys. Oh no!
Creatures, but especially
Start
humans.
over. I fucked it up.
Attention. Attention has always been a form of currency in most creatures, but especially humans. Most humans crave attention in some form, whether it be through praise, adoration, or just simple acknowledgement. We want to feel as though we are seen, understood, and liked whenever possible, and that subconscious desire leads most people into positive
Hi, Shifty
actions.
Squid, how are
you
you?
want your friends to think you are cool, so you make them specialized, thoughtful
Okay, so we
gifts
just need
that
2
reflect their
rows
interests
of 9
and
double
things you remember
crochets.
about them. You want your parents to be proud of you, so
I
you
am
spend your free
on
time studying so you can get good grades.
row
you want
7,
the person
starting
you
right
have
now.
a crush
Big Wolf
on to
Paws,
like
thank you so much.
So you spend extra time in the morning getting ready so you can look nice. Most of our actions can be watered down to the fact that we want attention in some way, shape, or form, and there is nothing necessarily wrong with that. Positive actions
move the
warrant
marker here.
positive attention. And that
Can you guys see
attention
okay?
can
I moved
become
my cam a
addicting.
little bit
But
closer
there
to
are
my
limits,
hands.
or at least for most people, there are limits. For most, those limits are based on our morals. But in today's case, the limit, unfortunately, doesn't exist. Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first time here, welcome. Today we are going to be covering the case of Lisa Snyder, a mother who would do the
Looks fine.
unthinkable
Good.
for attention from a man she desired, and would go on to try and frame her son for the crime. In many synopses for this case, Lisa has been labeled the worst mother of all time, beating out people like Casey Anthony and Diane Downs, and that is a title
I don't know who
that
Diane
she entirely
Downs
deserves.
is, but
This
Casey
video
Anthony's
came
pretty
highly
bad.
requested, and one person who claimed to be close to the case reached out to us via Facebook, asking us for a deep dive on this story, as they felt it wasn't given the proper attention it deserved. If there is a case you want to see me cover, feel free to leave it in the comments down below, or send us an email
Diane
at
Downs also killed her kids. What an asshole.
We are constantly going through our requests and responding to emails as much as possible, and that is the easiest way to get into contact with us for any reason. If you want to support the channel, consider checking out our
1, 2,
Patreon,
3,
liking
4,
the
5.
video, or subscribing to the channel.
Just
Before
want to
we get
count to make
started,
sure I have it
due to
right.
the
Hi,
nature of
Zombie
the
Broccoli,
video,
how are you?
as well as the more graphic details of this particular crime, this video has been demonetized by YouTube, which is why we have maintained a sponsor. This video is brought to you by
Oh, I'm so
Established
happy that they're
Titles.
getting
Established
sponsors
Titles
now.
is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds, or lords and ladies in English, as a form of respect, and has a dedicated focus on preserving the gorgeous natural landscape in Scotland. They do this by selling as small as 1 square foot of land so that the buyer can officially be classified as a lord or lady, complete with an official framed proclamation. And for each order, they plant a tree. The certificate you receive also comes with the plot number of the land, which you can then see for yourself, if you so choose. It's a fun, novel way to help preserve the picturesque woodlands and biodiversity of Scotland while supporting
that's fun,
global
RJ.
afforestation efforts. It's a win-win situation. You get the official title of
Okay,
Lord or
we're
Lady,
doing good.
something that you can then put on official documents, and you're helping create change in the world. They have packs for lordships, ladyships, couples, and even family packs, and it makes for an incredible gift for a loved one or a parent. After receiving my own, multiple of my family members expressed interest in getting their own titles, meaning I already know what I will be getting them for their birthdays and the holidays. If you're interested in getting your own lordship or ladyship, click the link below in the
Is
description
Diane
of
Downs
the video.
the one that made
You
up
get
the
10%
fictitious
off any
babysitter
purchase.
kidnapping?
That is 10%
Oh,
off
that's
your
ringing
order
a
when you go to
bell.
establishedtitles.com/dreading. Thank you
but
so much to
Casey
Established
Anthony
Titles
did
for
that,
sponsoring
though.
my channel, and thank you all for supporting my sponsors. The vast majority of the content on this channel is demonetized, and being able to get sponsors at all is a gift. And the fact that my audience is so receptive to supporting them makes it possible for me to continue working on this channel. With all that said, let us begin. In
I
true
really
crime
hope that
cases,
this dude
usually
gets
those
big. He
who knew the
deserves it.
culprit
He does a
will come
really good
forward
job.
and give their own testimony on what occurred.
I've noticed
Usually,
significant
within the
growth
span
on
of
his
4
channel.
to 5 years, family members will give their own tell-all interviews, write books, and write about the warning signs they saw growing up with the person who committed the crime. These insights, provided by third
You like his
parties,
voice?
are
I like his
helpful
voice,
as
too.
they serve to answer the question of what kind
clear.
of person would do something as heinous as what we are about to discuss without having to use the criminal's word as gospel. However, in this case, absolutely no one in Lisa Snyder's life would go on to claim her as a friend. Lisa's family has all disavowed her and refused to acknowledge her life, and through that, very little is actually known about who she was as a person before September 3rd, 2019.
I think I might need to make the
In
video a little bit
2019,
smaller so that I have a
Lisa
little bit
Snyder
more
was a
room to
single
work with,
mother
because
to
when
her
it's
son,
down this
8-year-old
low, I have
Connor,
the
and
inclination to pull
4-year-old
it closer
Brenley.
to me.
She also had a much
Who is
older
this narrator
son who lived
again?
with them, 17-year-old Owen. Connor was a goofy kid.
I don't
He loved
remember his
science,
name.
specifically anything related to rocks and minerals. and his teacher would fondly remark
I
that
don't
every
remember
day
his
Connor
name,
would
but
bring
this
in
is
new
dreading
rocks to
crime
show
and
them.
psychology.
He was a funny kid and always
You
tried
guys
to get
should
everyone else to laugh,
if you're
which
looking
came
for
easily to
Patreons
him,
to
as
support.
his laugh was distinct enough to cause a reaction itself.
I'm gonna make
Connor
the
was
video
the
just a
kid
little bit
that
smaller
most
so that I
kids
have a little
were
bit more
friends
space
with
here.
because he had that kind
I
of
didn't
personality
really
that drew
consider
others
that.
in. He was also a great
Come on.
older brother to his sister. Brinley loved dressing up in
Brinley
Disney
is my
princesses,
aunt's name.
but she also
Or
loved
my
her
aunt?
brother.
My niece.
Connor was
My
exceptionally
niece's
careful
name.
and kind to Brinley, and usually went out of his way to take care of her. Notably, whenever he
It's
would
not
get a
spelled
treat
like that,
from his
though.
teacher for good behavior, he would always get something he thought Brinley would like so he could give her a gift when he got home. He had a slight speech delay, as well as a hard time with certain motor functions, leading
I hope
him
that
to
this
having
is
poor
okay.
hand-eye coordination, but that never got him down.
I
He
feel
was
like
seeing
it's
an
not
occupational
much
therapist
smaller,
at
but it
school
makes a
who was
huge
helping him
difference
work
for
on his
me.
motor
I
skills
can rest
and
my
get him up to the
arms
same
up
level
here
as
so
his
that
classmates,
we
who
can
seemed
see,
nothing if
right?
not accepting of his abilities. This description of Connor's personality and behavior leading up to September 2019 was given by his teacher, some of his classmates, and his older brother, Owen, and those statements were likewise corroborated by video evidence of Connor's actions both in school and out of school. Everyone who interacted with Connor would go on to attest what a happy and optimistic child he was. That is, everyone except for his mother. In the weeks leading up to September, Lisa would go on to talk to her friends about her son, and she would present a very different description of him than they had personally witnessed. She told them that Connor was being bullied at school by all the other children, specifically because of his weight, and every day he would come home incredibly angry. Lisa would describe Connor as furious, aggressive, and sad. She told them that this bullying had begun to negatively affect his self-esteem to the point where he had purposely been starving himself in an attempt to lose weight, losing 25 pounds in the month that school had been in session, and that he had begun to say concerning things about harming himself. She was quoted as saying that Connor said he wanted to kill himself, but he was too scared to die alone. That statement alone drew plenty of concern to those around Lisa. As an 8-year-old, being so negatively affected by something that they would consider suicide as an option is incredibly rare. But whenever pressed for more information or asked about what she was doing to help Connor, Lisa would backtrack. She would say that Connor didn't tell her what exactly happened in class, or who was actually bullying him, as he, quote, didn't want her to get involved or call the school. When they would point out that he was already harming himself, unhealthfully dropping 25 pounds by starving himself, she would downplay how serious his actions were, saying that he was fat anyways. But she maintained that what he was doing was concerning, but just not enough for her to take him out of school and get him any sort of help. Of course, if you or a loved one is experiencing any mental health effects like the ones Connor was purported to be experiencing by his mother, you should seek medical treatment. Losing over 2 pounds in 1 week over an extended period of time is deeply unhealthy and is a sign of an eating disorder. If someone you know is regularly talking about committing suicide as well, you should attempt to get them help. This is especially true for someone under the age of 10, but Lisa only apparently cared enough to complain to her friends about her son's actions, instead of getting him any sort of help.
One
Lisa
more time
informed
from the
Owen
top, I
of
guess.
this new
Jesus
development with
Christ.
his younger brother, and Owen, being protective of his sibling, sat down with the 8-year-old to talk about what was happening. But according to Owen, Connor had no idea what he was talking about. His school life was nothing if not happy. When Owen brought up the bullying happening at school, Connor said no one in his class had been mean to him, and when asked if anyone gave him a hard time about his weight, Connor seemed confused, as if no one had mentioned it to him before. The only person in his life who had ever talked about his weight had been his mother. At the same time, one of Lisa's friends recalled how she had picked Connor up from school following a conversation with Lisa about how hard school was on him, and he had been laughing out in front with a group of students, having a great time. This stood out to her because Lisa had maintained that Connor had no friends, that every day he came home in a rage, and that he was deeply upset. However, just a few weeks prior to Connor's reported depression, she also recalled that Lisa herself had been unable to get out of bed and said she doesn't care about her kids anymore. As odd as that statement was, in the following weeks of Connor and Brinley going to school, it seemed that she had made a mental breakthrough. When asked about why her son wasn't acting like he was being bullied by her friends and family, Lisa would state that Connor was her little soldier, and that he never wanted to act as if anything was wrong. And it was often only when he got home from school that he would react to the abuses that he had been subjected to during the day. Lisa would continue to talk about Connor's behavioral issues nearly every day for 3 weeks with her friends, until September 23, 2019. The day had been like any other day for Connor and Brinley. The pair went to school, where they had an average day of playing with friends, and then took the bus home. According to the security footage both at school and at home, Connor was in a great mood. However, shortly after arriving home, Connor and Brinley would inexplicably be found in their home's basement, hanging from the rafters, nearly dead. The following is the account from Lisa Snyder, as given to the police, both on September 3rd and September 4th, as seen in police records. At 3:34, September 3rd, Connor got off the school bus and came running home. He showed no signs of distress. Lisa explained that when Connor got home from school, he wanted to play on his iPad, but changed his mind that he wanted to play on his laptop, but he couldn't find the charger. He came down from his room when he could not find his charger and asked Brinley if she wanted to go downstairs and build a fort. He loved building forts. It's his thing. Lisa stated that they played downstairs in the basement all the time. Connor asked if he could take the kitchen chairs down, and Lisa related to him only if he takes them down himself and brings them back up. She was asked by police if he wanted to take anything else down, and she said yes. He asked if he could use the dog lead I had on the table. I just bought it today. Lisa was asked what Connor did with the dog lead, and she stated that's what they were hanging from. Lisa indicated she got the dog lead that day at the Hamburg Walmart, and that she did online pickup around 9:30 a.m. She placed the order for the dog lead online the day before. Lisa recalled Connor taking the chairs downstairs because they are heavy. He took the chairs down separately, one at a time. Lisa stated it took him a while, but he got them down there. She described hearing a plump of the chair on the step, the creak of the steps as it was a slow go. He came right back up, got a drink, and took the second chair down and returned for another drink. Lisa indicated she was putting laundry away and always places her boys' laundry on the table for them to put away. She then took the dog downstairs and to have a cigarette. Lisa mentioned that she is usually outside 3 to 4 minutes, but was throwing the dog's toy and believes she was outside for approximately 10 minutes. After coming inside, she went downstairs to see if the kids wanted frozen pizza or Chef Boyardee for dinner. She then observed them both hanging. Lisa related that she tried to lift her 40-pound daughter, Brinley, up. However, when her anxiety spikes, she starts to sweat profusely, and she was unable to get the latch off. She then tried to lift Connor, who weighed approximately 151 pounds, but she was unable to lift him. She then went upstairs and called 911, and never returned to the basement. According to Lisa's story, Connor had decided to kill himself and his sister. As he had told Lisa previously, he wanted to die but was scared of going alone. Lisa also only made one attempt to get both of her children down, but due to her anxiety and how sweaty her hands were, she was unable to. Her response to seeing her kids hanging was strange, as oftentimes parental figures will refuse to leave their children in such a state. In cases similar to this one, parents often grab their kids' bodies and try to lift them,
already
even for a
so
moment,
transparent,
to help
hey?
them breathe. They grab the chairs that were knocked over and find a way to take their
Yeah,
loved ones
Shifty Squid,
down
I'm
in the
feeling
hopes that
exactly
they are
the
still
same
alive.
way.
But instead of doing that, getting a knife and cutting her kids free, Lisa stated she tried to unclasp the dog leash and then gave up, going back upstairs and never returning to help her kids. She called 911, letting them know that her two kids,
I wanna
ages
hear
8
that
and 4,
911 call.
were deceased and were hanging from the roof of her basement. She likewise explained to the operators that her son was bullied. He wanted to die, and he had killed his sister for the same reason, despite the fact that they did not ask. The 911 operator then told Lisa to go outside and await paramedics. That way, they could find her house quicker and be able to provide aid to her children. Lisa, however, did not do that, and instead stayed inside, upstairs, away from her dying children, in order to make some calls. The following is the conversation with the 911
Yeah,
operator
I
and
wanna
the
hear
EMTs,
this.
alerting them to the scene.
From the caller. Both children
Never mind, this isn't what I wanted to hear.
They're hung in their unknown time at this time. But can you repeat that? Well, when both children are hanging in the basement. We're Captain 44-1. Captain 44, any indication from the caller if the scene is safe or how these children ended up there. She mentioned that the 8-year-old has been bullied and has made threats of doing this, but didn't want to go alone. And sadly, he may be the aggressor in the situation. At this time, it should just be the mother and the 2 children on scene.
As you heard, the EMTs were confused at the situation and reasonably questioned if the scene was safe, given that 2 children were dead in the house. It's very rare for children to commit suicide, but it does in fact occur. But for a child to take part in a murder, suicide, killing their sibling, and then themselves before the age of 13 is entirely unheard of. Then, upon getting the call that there were 2 kids dead in a home with a living parent, they suspect
it's
immediately
so obvious
that the remaining parent had some part in the crime, that the scene was dangerous, and that someone had done this to the children.
Look at those
At
sweet
4:41,
babies.
nearly an hour after Connor had come back from school and was seen, happy and in good spirits, by his school bus's camera, the fire department EMTs arrived at the Snyder home. Again, they had been told that Lisa would be outside waiting for them, but the outside of the home was empty, and the doors were closed. Still, they approached, knocked on the door, and were greeted by Lisa, who they stated was on the phone and appeared nervous, but notably wasn't crying. Similarly, Lisa was so distracted on her phone call that she didn't show the EMTs where her kids were, and instead, they went about the house themselves before they found the kids in the
Jesus
basement.
Christ.
Immediately, the EMTs got to work and removed the kids from their nooses and found the bodies were still warm. They began to attempt to resuscitate them using CPR. During this time, officers arrived at the scene and found it to be chaotic. Lisa had informed friends and family as to what was going on, and they had come over to the home. Officers stated that they were upstairs milling about the main floor of the house. All the while, Connor and Brinley were being revived downstairs. Miraculously, both Connor and Brinley were still alive, but unconscious, and were able to be airlifted to Lee High Valley Hospital and put on life support. In the following days, Lisa would be interviewed twice by the police, who were already looking at her as a suspect. Her behavior the day of the crime, her unwillingness to help resuscitate her children, and her overall story didn't make sense to them. And the more she spoke, the more they realized
these kids
that something
rat her the
terrible must have
fuck
happened
out.
to the
I hope
children
that they
under her
pulled
care.
through
The following is from the police
and ratted
records
her the
of Lisa's
fuck
interviews.
out.
She said, Connor had been bullied and that he told her on multiple occasions that he wanted to die. Lisa related that she did not know much about Connor's bullying. He doesn't say much about it because he knows I will call the school. He is overweight, has a speech delay, and needs extra help. A little slower to grasp things, kids make fun of him because he is fat. He has lost 25 pounds since school has started because he is starving himself. Lisa stated, he tells me he hates school. Every day he tells me he doesn't want to talk about school. I did not see any problems until he told me about the kids on the bus. She indicated that Connor has been having issues since first grade. He just comes
Everything
home
feels
and
so
he is just
huge when you're a
angry.
teenager,
Lisa was
hey?
asked again what happened, and she related that Connor tried to kill himself. We had a little sit down last
Everything
week,
is
and I told
huge
him,
when you're a
"Honey, if
teenager."
you ever feel like hurting yourself, please come to me." He did say to me when we were talking, I would have killed myself already, but I am too scared to go by myself. Lisa indicated that she believed that's why Connor had Brinley with him, so they could go together. Obviously, even if this was the case, Lisa would still be a terrible mother. She stated in the interview that her son was horrifically bullied, so badly that he, at the age of 8, was talking about dying, but because he hadn't told her the quote, details of the abuse, she didn't call the school or try to get him help. She also stated that she didn't know what exactly happened, and that Connor had tried to keep her away from being involved, but maintains that he talked openly about wanting to die. So much so that the week before his death, he made a comment about attempting to take his own life. However, it cannot both be true that Connor was open about his depression to his mother, but she was woefully unaware of how serious it was. In order to corroborate her story, the police began to question those around the family, starting with Owen. Owen immediately informed the police that his brother wasn't being bullied, and that they had a conversation prior to his death about bullying, only for
So
Connor
he
to
did
state
die?
that the
That's
only
such a
person in
bummer.
his life that commented about his weight was Lisa. He then informed the police that Connor and Brinley would never play in the basement, despite Lisa saying they had done so all the time, because they were scared of it. So the very idea that Connor would want to build a fort downstairs was already unbelievable. The police also spoke to Lisa's friend who had picked Connor up from school after she told him about the bullying, and she supported Owen's statement that the young boy hadn't in fact been bullied by his peers, Still needing further
And now we
evidence,
do 2
they went
rows
to the
of
school
9.
and spoke to
And
Connor's
then we're gonna
teachers,
do
all
a
of which
curve.
were devastated by the loss. They too confirmed that everyone
It's understood.
loved
That shit
Connor,
happens
and
a
that there
lot
had
in
been
our chat
no
because
change
we
in
just
his
get so
mental health
fucking mad
prior
at
to
these
his
pieces of
untimely
shit.
murder. While at the
It's
school,
just weird.
the
Like,
police spoke to
anytime a
Connor's
child
occupational
brings up
therapist, and she
suicide,
informed them that
immediately they
Connor
should be
was
in
not
therapy.
only not depressed and would not kill himself and his sister, but that he would be physically unable to. According to the court documents, the therapist, who was referred to as Witness 2, stated that Connor received occupational therapy due to below-average motor skills, as well as his perceptual vision. Connor had low eye-hand coordination and difficulty with dexterity, using his index finger and thumb pinched together. Witness 2 was shown a replica of the dog lead and asked if she believed victim 2 would have been able to operate the clasp. Witness 2 related Connor would have had difficulty operating the clasp due to his poor dexterity. Witness 2 was shown a crime scene photograph of the dog lead wrapped around the beam in the
Okay,
basement
so
and
what
asked
we're
if
gonna
she
do
believed
now-
Connor would have completed the task. In addition to the photograph, she was also informed that it would require Connor stand on a chair. Witness 2 indicated that she believed it would have been extremely difficult for Connor to complete the task, as it takes him twice as long to do things compared to children his
Is
age.
leave a
With
mark
that in
in
mind,
so that
the
we
idea that
can
within
count
an
the
hour
2
of arriving
rows that we're
home,
doing
Connor
now.
would have been able to take 2 chairs downstairs into the basement, gotten up on a chair, wrapped a dog leash around a high beam, and make 2 nooses to hold both him and his sister, and been able to coax her to her death, is nonsensical. But by the time the police had talked to everyone who knew Connor, they realized that the only person who ever mentioned that Connor was bullied and appeared suicidal was Lisa, making her the prime and really only suspect. While the idea of a mother killing her kids is incredibly disturbing and off-putting, it is not as uncommon as many would think. In fact, Lisa had grown tired of her children and opted to kill them herself. That would make much more sense than her well-loved, happy 8-year-old deciding to kill his sister and himself. There have been many psychological studies looking into women like Diane Downs, Andrea Yates, and so many others. In one study from October 2007, Susan Friedman and Philip Resnick looked into the phenomenon and found that there are 5 major factors that could lead to a mother killing her child. Resnick's review of the world psychiatric literature on maternal filicide found
Yeah, I wanna know
filicidal
more about
mothers
this
to have
dog that they
frequent
had.
depression, psychosis, prior mental health treatment, and suicidal thoughts. Maternal
that was a small
filicide
dog,
perpetrators
that's
have 5
evidence
major
enough
motives.
that she was
A.
planning
In an
this, right?
altruistic filicide, a mother kills her child out of love. She believes death to be in the child's best interest. For example, a suicidal mother may not wish to leave her motherless child to face an intolerable world, or a psychotic mother may believe that she is saving her child from a fate worse than death. B. In an acutely psychotic filicide, a psychotic or delirious mother kills her child without any comprehensible motive. For example, a mother may follow command hallucinations to kill. C. When fatal maltreatment filicide occurs, death is usually not the anticipated outcome. It results
we've
from
talked
cumulative
about
child
munchies
abuse,
here.
neglect, or Munchausen syndrome by proxy.
Yeah.
D. In an unwanted child filicide, a mother thinks of her child as a hindrance. E. The most rare, spouse revenge filicide, occurs when a mother kills her child specifically to emotionally harm that child's father. It seemed obvious that Lisa's motive had nothing to do with altruism, maltreatment, nor did she have any hallucinations about harming her kids. She likewise didn't have a relationship with her children's other parents. So, harming them to get back at him was incredibly unlikely, which only left one possible motive, that she simply didn't want her kids, and viewed them as a hindrance to her life. This motive would be backed up by the fact that she told her friend as much a month prior to their deaths, and the fact that in 2014, the kids had been taken out of the home for their own protection. At this point, the police believed that Lisa had harmed her children, and they would not allow her to be left alone in the Connor or Brinley's hospital rooms. While they continued to look into Lisa, she went onto her Facebook and made a variety of posts. She put the family's above-ground pool for sale on Facebook Marketplace, and then in the caption of the listing wrote, "I am selling this like-new pool to help pay for my children's final expenses, as they were in a horrible accident. Serious inquiries only, please. I have a lot to deal with due to the loss of my children. Please don't waste my time." This was posted even though her children were still very much alive, just on life support. She also sent an update on her children's conditions to one friend via Facebook. It read, "Update. It's not looking good right now. Their brains are swollen, but once the swelling goes down, they are going to do a brain scan to check for brain activity. They said hopefully tomorrow or Thursday they can do that." The doctor herself told us to prepare for the worst. And for a doctor to say that, you know it's pretty bad and that I'm going to have to make the toughest decision of my entire life. The other person responded and she wrote back, "Can't cry anymore. I'm completely numb. My life has been ripped to shreds and it's never going to get
really
better.
not looking
but I got
good,
to try
Lisa.
to stay
Yeah.
strong for Owen, and miracles happen every day. You never know. But I'm also not stupid and I'm not getting my hopes up." Later on, she sent another message to the same person writing, "Update. They are not going to make it. The doctors will be pulling the plug tomorrow or Friday. They need to run a few more tests simply for the investigation. After that, my babies will be going to heaven to live with Jesus." 3 days after they were found hanging in their basement, on September 26th, Connor and Brinley were removed from life support entirely. They were two amazing children who deserved to have their lives lived to the fullest capacity, and the loss of these two clearly amazing children would lead to the investigation
Snuggles, thank
into
you so
Lisa
much for the
Snyder
biddies.
only ramping up. And despite her statement to her friend, she was too stupid to notice. On the 23rd, the police had seized multiple electronics from the home for the investigation. This included Lisa's cell phone, 2 Apple iPads, a laptop, an Xbox, and multiple things that Lisa stated Connor liked to use. The police also made it known that they were looking for the family dog, Buster, who Lisa said she had given away following the deaths of her children, although she would state she didn't remember who the dog was given to. The cops emphasized they needed to weigh the dog
How do you
in
not
conjunction
remember?
with the investigation, although it would not come out until much later why. On October 2nd, after conversing with Owen, the cops executed another search warrant on Lisa. Owen had informed the police that despite Lisa stating she only had one phone, like most people, she actually had 5 other phones in her possession, all of which belonged to her. However, Owen had made note of one specific phone that she used quite regularly, a Galaxy Note 9, but the cops were unable to locate it. When the cops asked Lisa where the Galaxy Note 9 was, she responded that she had no idea, and that she had lost the device the same day her children died, which is not suspicious at all. Later on, the police would find that that story was in fact a lie, as her car's Bluetooth had actually connected to the phone after her children's deaths on September 27th, and she had texted a joke to someone about the cops' inability to find said phone. After September 27th,
What?
it is believed that Lisa destroyed the phone and all the evidence that was on it, as to not incriminate herself. However, 6 other phones,
Hi, Defiant
Facebook
Heroes, how are
account,
you?
and saved Google searches were more than enough to incriminate her. The police subpoenaed Google for Lisa's Google searches and found that she'd been planning to eliminate her children for at least a week in advance of their hangings. On September 17th,
I'm
at
gonna barf
10:21
until I
p.m.,
die from
she
it.
Googled carbon monoxide in a car, how long to die. 3 days later, on September 20th, at 6:58 p.m., she Googled Almost Got Away With It and Almost Got Away With It Best Episodes, referencing a show available on Discovery Plus where people talk about how they almost got away with murder. 2 days after that, at 11 a.m., she Googled hanging yourself and then visited a website that went over the effective ways to hang a person using a short drop, simple suspension method. A day after that, she Googled, does a hybrid car produce carbon monoxide? And then, does a hybrid car produce carbon monoxide while idling? Clearly weighing the options she had in regards to killing her 2 amazing children. After the Google records were
Disgusting.
received, the cops had another break. Buster the dog was found, and they were able to weigh him at the station. Buster weighed around 50 pounds, which was important to the case, seeing as the dog leash that Lisa had bought the same day as the murders was for much larger dogs, between 150 and 200 pounds, which was nearly the exact weight of Brinley and Connor added together. But that wasn't all. They also got access to Lisa's Facebook, where they found something even more disturbing than her Google history. It seemed as if Lisa
They
had
were
been
doing
carrying out
fours.
an online romantic relationship with a man who has still not been identified publicly. And in this relationship, Lisa would often sext this man about having sex with her dog, Buster. This included photos and videos, as well as graphic descriptions as to what happened. Here are just some of the messages that were written in the probable cause affidavit by the
Okay,
police.
content
At 3 a.m.,
warning.
September 3rd, she wrote, quote, "He's eating my pussy, daddy." Then she writes, in response to him wanting a picture, he keeps moving around every time the flash goes off. Later in the day, at 11:28 a.m., she sends a photo of the dog licking her vagina. Later, she says he did good until he started biting my labia. Jesus Christ. Alright, anyways, on the 17th, the same day she searched online about killing her kids using carbon monoxide poisoning, she messaged the man saying, "Oh daddy, just took some good pics for you." She then sends 3 photos. One is a picture of her holding the dog's penis. Another is the dog once again licking her vagina. And the third is a photo of herself with a ball gag, wearing black lingerie and nipple clamps. Just fucking what the fuck? Just for added pizzazz. Later on, she tells the mystery man that, quote, "The dog went for it all on his own this time. Was lashing in bed in my underwear and he started licking, so I went with it." She then clarifies she meant laying. In the same text thread, Lisa talked to him about meeting up, but realized that it wouldn't be easy to do because she had to worry about her children. She wrote, in regards to the man having sex with her and her dog, "You'll hopefully see Sunday." That is followed up with, "But I found out Owen does work and is an all-day job. So gonna try option B, which is my mom. So don't get your hopes up, she's a bitch when it comes to babysitting." These messages alone show how starved Lisa was for any romantic attention. She wanted to be pursued romantically so much that she had adopted bestiality into her life, and wanted to meet a man who was as into having sex with animals as he was having sex with her. However, her kids were stopping that from happening. It seemed that Lisa had begun to feel as if her kids were getting in the way of her pursuits, and that the only way she was going to be able to do whatever she wanted was if she got them out of her life. As the investigation uncovered more and more about Lisa Snyder and her demented life, Lisa believed that she was in the clear. Despite the coroner labeling the deaths as a homicide, Lisa felt as if she had covered her trail well enough. She had spent the first weeks of the month stating her son wanted to die so everyone would listen, including her Facebook bestiality buddy. The story had been written up in many publications and described as being a parent's worst nightmare and used to discuss the dangers of bullying, and there was no way in Lisa's mind they had been able to find her Google searches. She then decided to make a Facebook page for Connor and Brinley. She wanted to leash as much attention from their deaths as possible, so she began posting to the page with photos and memories of the kids she killed. However, very quickly, other people knew about the case, knew Connor, and knew that she was lying, and began to comment on her posts, stating they believed she was behind the murders. Lisa swiftly blocked as many people as she could, but as time wore on, she realized that she couldn't simply block everyone who came to the page. Instead, she opted to use a new tactic and made multiple different Facebook accounts under different aliases, declaring that they knew Lisa, and there was no way she would do this. These accounts all sprung up around November, had very little information on them, and were clearly fake, but they all defended her, stating she was a good mother who would never harm a hair on her children's head. Less than a month later, though, she would be arrested and charged with Connor and Brinley's murders, along with the sexual abuse of Buster and the destruction of evidence. Many of the police documents
got every one of those
public,
charges,
including Lisa's bestiality messages, but she maintained her innocence. In response, she stated that the searches about carbon monoxide and hanging were done by her because she wanted to kill herself previously. She also argued somewhat against the claim and said those searches must have been made by Connor because he, quote, wanted to die. Very clearly, no one was buying her statements, and as time wore on, her lawyers made it clear that they were no longer going to argue that she didn't kill her kids, but rather she was temporarily insane, and therefore cannot be held accountable. In court documents that were presented, Snyder's lawyers argued
it always looks good when you swap it from didn't do it to temporarily
going as far back
insane.
as postpartum depression at age 16 when she had Owen. Other mitigating conditions included major depression with psychotic features and anxiety disorder. According to this story, she perceived that the kids were being hurt by others, and she wanted to protect them from feelings of abandonment and/or to alleviate the painful feelings and situations they were experiencing at the time. However, they would have to argue that Connor's bullying was so incredibly horrible it warranted his dying, even though all the evidence that has been found says otherwise. It also doesn't account for why she would choose to kill Brinley, who, by her own estimation, was not bullied and had a wonderful life. Lisa's trial has still not begun, but prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. Lisa did not want to be a mother anymore. She wanted to be able to go out with her bestiality boyfriend, have sexual relationships, including animals, and she was so annoyed that she had to consider her children in her life when she had to make her decisions. And for it, it was easier to kill them than it was to be a parent. There is no doubt in my mind, nor anyone in the prosecuting office's mind, that she will be found guilty. It's just waiting until she is. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing. This video was requested by multiple of my subscribers and patrons, but if there is a case you would like to see me cover, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below, or shoot me an email at dreading.official@gmail.com. If you want to support the channel, as we are often demonetized, a link to our Patreon will be in the description box down below. Have a great day, and remember, stay safe. April 3rd, 2019.
I was gonna pause it.
A bruised and battered teenage boy
everybody
is seen
hang tight
sprinting
for just a
across the
second.
Ohio River Bridge. Clearly,
Pause. Sorry. This next one is Timothy Pitson. It's a missing boy, I guess. I've never heard of this. Yeah, these are the ones that are just short. We're just doing a few short ones today because I still I don't know how long I can stream yet, but I'm gonna run a quick ad break so that everybody can go get snacks, water, touch your toes if you can, and if you want to, just make sure that you get up and move around if you can. And we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. And we'll do another short one. There's 2 more short ones and 1 long one in case we're really feeling it tonight, but please don't have your hopes up because I have not had a lot of energy or mental fortitude. Anyway, be right back. Sorry, give me 1 second here. Abrupt music end. Live screen. Hello, me. There we go. All right. If I could just get 3 readies in chat, we'll just get right back to work here. No readies? Nobody's ready? Can you guys hear me? Oh no. Hell yeah. There's 1. There's 2. 4. And there's 3. Excellent. Here we go. Again, this is Dreading Crime and Psychology. By all means, everybody go subscribe. Watch these videos alongside me if you would, so that they get the extra views. And if you're looking for Patreons, they have one.
April 3rd, 2019. A bruised and battered teenage boy is seen
sorry.
sprinting across the Ohio River Bridge, clearly distraught and looking for help. He desperately runs into the roads and up to cars, asking people to roll their windows down and directly putting himself in danger. Local residents approach him, unwilling to fully engage with the boy, as they feel as if he could be on drugs or pose a threat to them. He
He's
is
just a
manic
little
and appears
boy.
in distress. When they do talk to the boy, he tells them that he is Timothy Pitson, the boy who was kidnapped over 7 years ago, and he just escaped his kidnappers. The police quickly respond to the call and arrive to find that the boy is still wandering the streets. He repeated that his name is Timothy Pitson. He was kidnapped about 8 years ago, and that he is 14 years old. To them, he appeared to be much older and doesn't match the photo of the child that they pull up. The boy claims he escaped from 2 kidnappers in the Cincinnati area and then fled across a bridge into Kentucky. According to the official police report, he told police he fled from a Red Roof Inn just across the bridge and that his captors have held him for the past 7 years. According to the police report, Timothy described the 2 kidnappers as 2 male whites, bodybuilder type build. One had black curly hair, a Mountain Dew shirt and jeans, and has a spiderweb tattoo on his neck. The other was short in stature and had a snake tattoo on his arm. The kidnapper's vehicle, according to the report, was described by Timothy to officers as a newer model Ford SUV with
I'm
unknown
so
Wisconsin
happy to hear
plates
that you
and a
immediately
second row.
subbed.
The
That's
Ford
good
is
shit.
white with yellow transfer paint and a dent on the
You could
left
also do
back
exclamation
bumper, the
point
report
feature in
states.
chat if you want a direct
Immediately,
link.
The police investigated these claims and put a bolo out for the vehicle, but nothing was found. They checked with the Red Roof Inn and shockingly found no evidence of the boy claiming to be Timothy ever being there, either on their security cameras or records. Moreover, no vehicle matching the description they were given was found on security cameras. Something was very wrong, but it wouldn't be until much later that the truth was revealed. Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first
I
time
need to go
here,
back.
then welcome. Today we are going to be covering the
fucked
case
up.
of Timothy Pitson and his mother, Amy Fry Pitson. I've been waiting to cover this case since I started the channel, as it is one of the most harrowing,
wonder,
and I still hold
actually-
out hope that one day Timothy will be found. This case has the tendency to stick with people, because it feels impossible that we do not have answers over 10 years later. But alas, here we are. This video was also suggested by my subscribers and a great deal of my patrons over
Yeah,
on
I think we're good,
Patreon,
actually.
my
This-
paid
this
membership
worked out.
site
This
that
is
allows
nice.
me to produce content
So, okay,
full
that
time.
was one.
And
I
thanks
need
to
to
my
get my pattern
patrons,
back
I
up
was able
here.
to handle the medical emergency that occurred last month. I have decided to quit my job to do this full time. And
Hell
for that, I
yeah.
want to say thank you. YouTube
Hell
often
yeah. I'm
demonetizes
so
this
happy.
content. But either way, I'll always make content, regardless of whether or not I'm being paid.
He deserves
so I
this.
appreciate the support from those watchers. With all of that said, let us begin.
He works really hard to make these like interesting and informative. I think his bias slips through sometimes, but I think that he does a better job than I ever would.
Timothy Pitson was born October 18th, 2004, to his parents, James Pitson and Amy Fry Pitson, who
Okay,
viewed him
so
as
that
a
was
miracle.
one.
James and Amy had met at a small party thrown
And
by
now
their
we're
mutual
on
friends,
fives.
and at once they fell for each other. Amy had just come out of her third failed marriage and had been going through a long depression, and James had recently survived his fight with cancer. When they met, they felt like they had been placed in the right place at the right time, and their lives were destined to be entwined. Amy had been dealing with mental health issues her entire life, often going from emotional highs
Amy is my
where she
little
felt on
sister's
top of
name.
the world and unstoppable, to steep, depressing lows
that sounds
where she would
like
feel as if her life was no longer worth
bipolar,
living,
my
and
guy.
that the world would be better off without her. In these lows, she would lash out at those around her, leading to moments of intense anger and distancing. In the cases of her previous marriages, she had
So,
cited her
again.
depression and emotional instability as being what caused their ends. She would lash out or act impulsively in a bid to feel something other than the negativity she was feeling, and it would result in her partners being hurt and leaving her. When the two met, James
golly.
seemed to believe that he could simply love the depression out of Amy. Amy had previously tried to take her own life, once before she met James, and a second time shortly after they began seeing each other, which James felt he could have prevented. He felt that by being there for her and making her the number one priority in his life, he could make her see how truly wonderful and amazing she was.
I'm
For the
gonna
first
do
year of their relationship, the couple did long distance,
double
only
here.
seeing each other when their schedules would allow for it. But James
To make
put in
this
the time
hole
and
less
effort,
big?
always telling Amy just how wonderful she was in his eyes and how much he truly cared for her. Unfortunately, as many of us are likely aware, depression doesn't simply just go away because you are well loved or treated well by the people around you. It has very little to do with who you spend time with and how they treat you, and much more to do with how your brain is wired to work. Though James most assuredly came from a place of love and good intentions, the idea that simply loving Amy would solve her mental health issues was incorrect, and this well-intentioned belief would later lead to a number of fights and misunderstandings. After they had
So
been
sorry,
dating for a
everybody.
significant amount of time, Amy shocked James with the news
Alpha
that she
Pine,
was
thank you so
pregnant.
much for
The
resetting,
pair
I
had not been
appreciate that.
trying for a child, but they also had not been practicing safe sex, or really using any form of birth control. James had been told by his doctors previously that he would be unable to father a child, given his cancer treatment's negative effects on his body, and so the pair felt comfortable not taking any precautions. But despite both being shocked by the discovery, they were ecstatic. Both excitedly told their families and got married, looking forward to the future they would have together, and Amy decided on the name Timothy, with 2 M's, and told her sister that her little boy was going to be special, hence the special spelling. He was going to be amazing, she told her, and everyone would know who he was. And unfortunately, she was right. The moment Timothy was born, Amy was obsessed with him. Her life revolved around him, and she would spend all of her free time with her son, taking photos and videos of everything he did. When she wasn't with him, she was talking about him, telling everyone at work
Okay,
about how
so,
amazing he was and how
1,
fast
2,
he was
3,
learning.
4,
However,
5. There
she
should
was
be
still dealing
6
with mental
here.
health issues. Her highs mainly focused around her son and being what she believed
There
was a
is,
good
because I
mother,
did the
but her
slip
lows
stitch.
were now larger, with her at times lashing out at
Okay.
her husband and believing
That was
that
my
he
own
no
bad.
longer loved
I
her.
can make up
The
for
pair
this.
began to fight more and more, with Amy lashing out in cruel, vindictive ways, and James meeting her energy and striking her back emotionally. Their marriage was beginning to show signs of stress in 2008, with them fighting frequently, but it was only when James found that Amy had reconnected with her ex-husband via Facebook that things would take a turn for the worse. According to James, he found that Amy had been messaging her ex-husband, a man that he believed mistreated her and therefore was responsible for her depression. Again, though Amy had dealt with depression her entire life, James erroneously believed that it was caused by a broken relationship, and therefore could be fixed with love. The messages started out innocent, but eventually the exes made plans to meet up with each other when James was out of town to have sex. When James found these messages, he was both heartbroken and angry. He spent years with Amy, consistently loving her and combating the damage that her ex had done to her self-esteem,
God damn
only
it.
for her to cheat on him. He felt betrayed, and Amy tried to downplay the interaction and state that James was overreacting. As the fight continued on, James told Amy that she would have to make the choice, either her ex-husband or Timothy and him. James gave his wife an ultimatum, saying if she did not stop contacting her ex, he he would file for divorce and full custody of Timothy. He told her that if they were going to get a divorce, he would take their son, and she would never see him again, as a way to hurt her so he could win the fight. At once, Amy broke down, and the pair
My week
made
has
up.
been pretty
but
rough.
afterwards, Amy became even more territorial, as she felt as if she couldn't
That
trust
chat
James.
mod app? I
The fight
don't even know
occurred
what
in
you're talking about,
2008,
bud.
And it seemed that after that, even in their good times, she still harbored a fair amount of mistrust for her spouse. She opened an email account under her maiden name and used it for purchases and conversations she didn't want her husband to see. She began taking small, unexplained, long day trips to various parts of Wisconsin behind James's back. And as time wore on, she came up with a plan that would forever change the course of the entire family's lives.
I'm sorry that you've had a rough week too, Alpha
May 11th, 2011. The day began as any other had before it, with the entire family waking up and getting ready to go off to their respective jobs and school. The day before, Amy had dealt with an extreme case of vertigo and dizziness, so James told her that he would be driving the family to school and to work, just to make sure they would arrive safely. Oddly enough, this assertion seemed to annoy Amy, who asked James if he didn't trust her with their son, to which he told her he did. He just wanted to make sure she was okay after her previous medical issues the day before. Amy appeared annoyed at this, but didn't argue. After that, he dropped his son off at his kindergarten class at Greenman Elementary School, telling him he loved him as he went to class. He had no reason to believe that this would be the last time he would see his son. Instead of going to work, Amy drove to Timothy's school and checked him out of class, telling his teachers that there was a family emergency and he needed to come with her right away. In stark contrast, her demeanor towards Timothy was energetic and fun. Whatever was wrong, she wasn't telling her son, and they set out for what seemed to be a fun-filled day together. She took Timothy out for food and dropped her car off for repairs at a local repair shop. As they waited for the car to be repaired, an employee drove them to the Brookfield Zoo. Timothy was obsessed with animals. He had gone to the zoo many times with his family. He stated that it was one of his favorite places. And from security camera footage, it was clear that Amy was doting on her son, making sure he had everything he wanted. While the pair was at the zoo at 12 p.m. noon, James arrived back at the school to pick Timothy up. When he entered the classroom, the teacher was shocked to see him. She informed him that Timothy had been picked up earlier in the day, shortly after he had been dropped off.
Thank you.
James didn't believe her and asked to see who had signed him out, and was annoyed to find that it had been his wife.
Oh my god, it has been so long. It took me a second. It took me a second to realize you're Dex. How are you?
To school, but felt that his son was safe
so happy to see
as long as he was with his mother. Though their marriage was disintegrating, he didn't believe that she would do anything to hurt
Thank
him
you for
or his son,
resubing.
and
You're a
that,
little
if
drunk. That's
anything,
fun.
She would come home in a couple of hours and they could talk. He called Amy's cell phone multiple times and tried to get in contact with her to see what her end goal was, but she refused to answer.
It's so good to see you, Dexter.
Again, this only served to annoy James, but he felt as long as his son was with his mother, they would be fine. He contacted relatives and told them about the situation and urged them to get into contact with Amy, but she likewise ignored their calls as well. At first, many of the relatives placated James, telling him everything would be fine and that the situation would right itself when Amy came home. But as the day wore on into night, and still no one had heard from Timothy or Amy, James contacted the police and filed a missing persons report for his wife and son.
Sorry, I'm a little bit low energy. I don't mean to be a fucker.
Given that they felt there was no reason to believe that Timothy was in any real danger. This inaction would have devastating consequences that we still feel today. At the same time that James was finding out his son had been taken out of class and was notifying their family, Amy and Timothy had returned to the car repair shop to pick up her vehicle. But instead of driving home or to a relative's house, Amy drove her son to Key Lime Cove Resort in Gurnee, Illinois. Key Lime Cove has since been rebranded as Great Wolf Lodge and is an indoor water park. The family had previously visited the resort together, and like the zoo, it was one of Timothy's favorite places. On security footage, the pair was caught having a great time, and once more, it seemed that Amy was giving her son everything he wanted and asked for when they were there. Timothy was
we need to make
obviously
sure that we're doing
excited. He had spent the
15
day
all the way
doing
around.
some of his favorite things with his favorite person. The mother and son duo spent the night at the resort. All the while, James and the police set out trying to find them. The next day, Timothy and Amy checked out of the Key Lime Cove Resort and drove to the Kalahari Resort in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin, which is, once again,
Dells
another
are
indoor
super
water
fun.
park. They spent the day together, ignoring
Dex,
relatives'
I'm working
concerned
on
calls
a
and seemed to
surprise
be having a great
gift
time.
for
The
Bear
next
Taffy.
day, May 13th,
We're
they checked out of the
making
hotel at
a
10 a.m.
ghost
as captured on
version
security
of
footage,
his,
and Timothy would never be seen again. However, he would be heard. After checking out
of
of
his
the
like
resort
Bear
between
Taffy
12
logo.
noon and 1:30
I'm making him a
p.m., Amy
plushie
called
of his
several
Bear Taffy
different
logo,
family
but
members,
also it's a
including her
ghost
brother-in-law
because
and her mother.
I'm creepy
She told
and I guess a
everyone that
little
she talked to
narcissistic.
that she and Timothy were fine, they were safe, and they were not in trouble. According to her mother, she said, quote, "We're fine. We'll be home in a day or two. I just need some time to figure out and try
Okay,
to
I need to
think
put
how
this
to
one
approach
in.
this,"
was
seemingly
number
referring to
2.
the disintegration of her marriage with James. According to James's brother, when Amy called him, she
I'm gonna
said,
send it to him when
"Timothy
it's
is fine.
done.
Timothy
What if he takes it
belongs
like
to
a
me.
threat? That's what I
Timothy
said
and
to
I will be
Elise.
fine.
I need
Timothy
to
is safe." The
hallucinate.
young
Thank you so
boy
much
could
for
be
the
heard in the
follow.
background of these
I like your name. Is your
repeatedly
name
stating
Holly?
that he was
Because that's
hungry,
amazing.
which was something he did often. According to the
I
people
said that
she
to
talked
Elise
she seemed fine,
Kool-Aid
if
when
not
I
a bit
told her. I
agitated,
was just like,
and
I hope he doesn't
clarified
take
that
it like a
Timothy
threat
was
or
her
think it's
son,
stupid.
And he was safe with her. Everyone who knew Amy
I need to think of
knew she
something
wouldn't have
fun to
hurt
make for
Timothy,
her to
and
pop
simply
in there
hearing them
too, to
both
put in the
did
package
wonders
because I
for their
love
nerves.
Elise so
Even
much.
still, they continued to feel as if something were deeply wrong. The calls were traced by the police and found to have come from the northwest area of Sterling, Illinois, near Route 40.
Your name is Holly?
And
That's
they would
so
indicate
cute.
the last time
That's so
Timothy would
cute.
ever be heard from. 6 hours after those calls were made, Amy would be seen on security cameras once more, this time by herself. Timothy was no longer with her, and she seemed to be at ease and unbothered. She was seen going into a Family Dollar in Winnebago, Illinois, where she bought a pen, notepaper, and envelopes. She was then seen
Okay,
at a
I got
grocery
very
store in the
excited by
same
everybody.
area, and then 4
Really
hours
quick,
later,
can I get
checked into
yays
the
or
Rockford
nays
Inn
on
in
if it's
Rockford,
okay
Illinois.
with you guys
According
if
to
I
those who
back
encountered
this up? I just got so excited to see Dexter because I haven't seen Dexter in such a long time, and Kool-Aid, and then Holly has that cute name. Are you guys okay if I back this up just like 5 minutes? Are you guys okay with that? Sorry, this is very fascinating and I don't want to miss anything. Back it up. If I just get even one more person that says, okay, sick, we're doing it. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I don't even think that it needs to really be 5 full minutes. Just back to where we realize that he's been kidnapped from school. Right here is good.
Animals. He had gone to the zoo many
Sorry,
times
thank
with
you
his
for
family.
understanding.
He stated
So
that it was
she
one of
picked
his
him up
favorite
from school,
places. And from security camera
and
footage, it was
without
clear that Amy
talking
was
to her
doting on
husband,
her son, making sure he
like,
had
took her to
everything
the
he
zoo.
wanted. While the pair was
So
at the
weird.
zoo at 12 p.m. noon, James arrived back at the school to pick Timothy up. When he entered the classroom, the teacher was shocked to see him. She informed him that Timothy had been picked up earlier in the day, shortly after he had been dropped off. James didn't believe her and asked to see who had signed him out, and was annoyed to find that it had been his wife. He felt, originally, she must have done this to get back at him for saying she shouldn't drive Timothy to school, but felt that his son was safe, as long as he was with his mother. Though their marriage was disintegrating, he didn't believe that she would do anything to hurt him or his son, and that, if anything, she would come home in a couple of hours and they could talk. He called Amy's cell phone multiple times and tried to get in contact with her to see what her end goal was, but she refused to answer. Again, this only served to annoy James, but he felt as long as his son was with his mother, they would be fine. He contacted relatives and told them about the situation, and urged them to get into contact with Amy, but she likewise ignored their calls as well. At first, many of the relatives placated James, telling him everything would be fine, and that the situation would right itself when Amy came home. But as the day wore on into night, and still no one had heard from Timothy or Amy, James contacted the police and filed a missing persons report for his wife and son. Unsurprisingly, the police weren't quick
They're
to
reporting
act,
50.
given
Okay,
that they
sick.
felt
We're on
there was
track,
no reason
guys.
to believe that Timothy
I feel like
was
I
in
have
any
control
real
of this
danger.
project for the
This
first
inaction
time.
would have devastating consequences that we still feel today. At the same time that James was finding out his son had been taken out of class and was notifying their family, Amy and Timothy had returned to the car repair shop to pick up her vehicle. But instead of driving home or to a relative's house, Amy drove her son to Key Lime Cove Resort in Gurnee, Illinois. Key Lime Cove has since been rebranded as
That
Great
is
Wolf
such a cute
Lodge
picture of
and
that
is an
fucking
indoor
kid.
water park. The family had previously visited the resort together, and like the zoo, it was one of Timothy's favorite places. On security footage,
You got
the pair was
accosted by a
caught having a
cop?
great time. And
Tell us
once more,
everything.
It seemed that
Are
Amy
you
was giving
okay?
her son everything he wanted and asked for when they were there. Timothy was obviously excited.
Obviously don't tell
He had
us
spent
everything
the
if
day
it's, like,
doing
private
some
and you
of
don't
his
feel like
favorite
it.
things with his favorite person. The mother and son duo spent the night at the resort. All the while, James and the police set out trying to find them. The next day, Timothy and Amy checked out of
I
Key
normally
Lime
make
Cove
clothing,
Resort
Holly,
and
but right
drove
now
to the
I'm making an
Kalahari Resort
amigurumi.
in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin, which is once again another indoor water park. They spent the day
The Dells
together,
is not an
ignoring
indoor water park.
relatives'
The Dells is
concerned
like an
calls,
area.
and seemed to be having a great
Dells
time.
rule.
The next day, May 13th,
The
they
Dells
checked out
has
of the
lots of
hotel at 10
indoor
a.m. as
water
captured
parks,
on
though.
security footage. And
I can get
Timothy
rid of this
would never
now.
be
This
seen
is the
again.
second
However, he would
and
be heard.
final row
After
that we're
checking
just
out of the
doing
resort
15
between
single
12
crochets.
noon and 1:30 p.m., Amy called several different family members, including her brother-in-law and her mother. She told everyone that she talked to that she and Timothy were fine, they were safe, and they were not in trouble. According to her mother,
What
she
an
said,
asshole.
quote, "We're fine, we'll be home in a day
Sperry,
or
I'm
two.
so
I just need
sorry."
some time to figure out and try to think how to approach this," seemingly referring to the
They let
disintegration
the
of her
smallest
marriage
amount of
with
authority
James.
go
According
straight to their
James's
little
brother,
fucking
when Amy
heads.
called him, she said, "Timothy is fine. Timothy belongs to me. Timothy and I will be fine.
Timothy
is
belongs
safe."
to me is a
The
very
young
weird
boy
thing
could
to
be heard in the
say.
background of these calls, repeatedly stating that he was hungry, which was something he did often. According to the people she talked to, she seemed fine, if not a bit agitated, and clarified that Timothy was her son and he was safe with her. Everyone who knew Amy knew she wouldn't have hurt Timothy, and simply hearing them both did wonders for their nerves. Even still, they continued to feel as if something were deeply wrong. The calls were traced by the police and found to have come from the northwest area of Sterling, Illinois, near Route 40, and they would indicate the last time Timothy would ever be heard from. 6 hours after those calls were made, Amy would be seen on security cameras once more, this time by herself. Timothy was no longer with her, and she seemed to be at ease and unbothered. She was seen going into a Family Dollar in Winnebago, Illinois, where she
Is
bought
she
a
gonna
pen,
disappear
notepaper,
too,
and
or-
envelopes. She was then seen at a grocery store in the same area, and then 4 hours later, checked in to the Rockford Inn in Rockford, Illinois. According to those who encountered her, she was calm and didn't appear to be in a state of stress. It was there that she killed herself by cutting her wrists and neck while overdosing on antihistamines, but not before writing 3 letters, one to her husband, one to a friend, and another to her mother. Using the pen and paper she had bought earlier in the day, Amy left a note that was found next to her body when she was discovered the following morning. The contents of this note have still not been made public. However, according to every source that has reported on this case thus far, the note went well into detail explaining what she did and why. According to James and the police officers who read the note, she apologized for the mess she had created, and went further to say that Timothy was safe with people who loved him and that would never be found. She said that she would never allow Timothy to be taken away from her, especially by James, and that she had
What
left
the
him in the care of
fuck?
people who would love and care for him. The letter, like the calls she had made the day before, was overtly possessive of their son, aggressively claiming ownership of him and his life. It also implied that James would have hurt Timothy to get back at her, although there was no proof or indication that James had, at any point,
This is wild.
abused
Yo, mental
Timothy.
health is no
2 days
fucking
after
joke,
the discovery of her body and the note, Amy's mother received the following letter.
Was she
going
mentally
into
ill?
further
She
detail
definitely
about
had
what
bipolar.
happened and why she felt compelled to kidnap and hide her own son. Parts of the letter were initially read out on Nancy Grace, then again on HLN's Real Life Nightmare, but the contents of the letter in full have not been transcribed or publicized that I was able to find. Mom, I know you were hurt and frustrated, and I wish I had something better to say than I love you, but I don't. I have never felt I belonged here. I have tried very hard to fit in, to be happy, to be good to those around me, but somehow I've always felt apart from everything. Tim helped me with that for a while, and maybe if Jim and I
need
had
to
been
count
better,
really quick.
it would be okay. But everything just fell apart, and this time there are too many pieces to pick up again. I can't take the chance of Jim hurting Tim because of my choices, so I've taken him somewhere safe. He'll be well cared for, and he says that he loves you. Please know that
Okay,
there
this
is
was
nothing that you
15.
could
I
have done
just
or
was not
said
counting right.
that would
We're
have
good.
changed my mind. It was just time to say goodbye. I love you, Mom. Amy. After the discovery of Amy's body, the investigation into where Timothy was taken began in earnest. Though he had been reported missing the same day, and Amy had used a number of credit cards,
I
making the
think
pair easily traceable,
I
the
want to
police hadn't
turn this
prioritized the
again.
case until Amy's death, and would have to play catch-up. The hotel room where she
I'm
was
done now.
found was grisly, and they noted the manner of death didn't necessarily match her circumstances. She had cut her wrists and her neck after purposely overdosing on antihistamines, which felt to some like overkill. Professionals who have looked at this case have noted that she had previously attempted suicide twice before, and it appeared that she wanted to be successful in this attempt. While scouring the scene for any evidence pertaining to Timothy's well-being, the police noted that none of the items that Amy had been seen buying for Tim during their 3-day-long vacation were in her possession. She had purchased numerous gifts, toys, and shirts for the boy, but there weren't any in her car, nor were they in the hotel room where she was found. They also noted that Timothy's car seat was missing from the vehicle, leading credence to the idea that he had been given to someone else for safekeeping. It would later be found that the car seat was never in the car in the first place, and it had been left at Timothy's grandparents' home the week prior. Alarmingly, the investigators stumbled across a large amount of blood in the back seat of Amy's car, exactly where Tim always sat. The blood was long since dried, but after running it through DNA analysis, they found it did indeed belong to Timothy. The investigation began to consider that Amy had possibly killed her son. However, James and the rest of the family disputed this assertion. The family would go on to claim that the dried blood was a false lead
Wild.
and was simply the result of a nosebleed from Timothy months before the road trip. They
Okay.
continued to insist that though she had harmed herself, she would never do anything to hurt her child. The police had little to go on in terms of what was left in Amy's possession at the time of her death and what her notes stated, so instead, they turned their investigation to her car and what was left in it. Amy's SUV was visibly dirty and had soil, tall grass, and weeds stuck to the undercarriage when it was located after her death. Forensic testing on the plant and sediment materials on the car indicated it stopped for a time on a gravel area just off an asphalt road that had at one time been treated with glass road-making beads. The vehicle backed into a grassy meadow or field, which contained Queen Anna's lace and black mustard plants, and would have been nearly treeless. Some oak or birch trees were in the general area, but not in the direct place where the car stopped. There was possibly a pond or a small stream close by.
Yeah, I'm
There were no
completely
indications that the
at a
land
loss
was
for
cultivated
this.
as either lawn or for growing crops. Investigators think the meadow is probably in Lee County, or Whiteside County in northwestern Illinois, but they are also considering Carroll, Ogle, Stevenson, and Winnebago counties. Despite that break, now over 10 years after the fact, we still have no idea where Timothy was left. It wouldn't be until autumn of 2013 that there would be another break in the case. When Amy died, her cell phone was not on her person, and would later be found on the roadside of Route 78, seemingly unharmed and still functional. Investigators went back to the place where it was found and conducted a search, but found nothing else of interest, and nothing of interest in the phone itself. Because of the open-ended nature of this case, there are many theories as to what happened. The first theory is that Amy left Timothy with a still unidentified friend, and he's been raised with them. This theory points to Amy's assertion in her letters and notes that she left Tim with people who would take care of him and raise him as their own, as well as the assertion
gonna do
that she
one
would never
more
hurt her own
round
son. There were no records of her contacting anyone on her
Before
phone or her
continuing on with the
computer,
pattern,
or
because I
any
do
money
want it to
exchanging
be
hands for this to be the case. Given the press coverage of the
kind of
case,
curly,
a family
back and
randomly
forth,
gaining a new
like
member whose name
bendy.
just so happens to be Tim
See you
would
later,
raise
Dragon Runner. Have a good
suspicion.
one.
So this is unlikely, unless he was kept under lock and key. That stated, there is an offshoot of this theory that could explain why he hasn't been seen publicly and how he could have avoided detection for so long. And that's the theory that Amy left Tim in an Amish community. Because the
Oh,
Amish
shit.
shun modernity and are so accepting of people joining their communities, it's unlikely they would have known the circumstances in which Tim was being given to them
That's so
or seen any
smart.
person's flyers that were around. If Amy came to the community and said she was giving up her son with
it's
the hopes
crazy,
they could
but
raise
it's
him,
smart.
it's likely they would have accepted him outright and without question or money exchanging hands. There is an Amish community in the area in which it's theorized she
The
drove,
Amish are all
so many
over
believe
the
this is the
Midwest.
case. Many private investigators have looked into this theory and do not believe it to be true. Investigators have gone to the communities with flyers and explained what occurred, but according to reports, no young man was ever dropped off and there is no sign of Timothy. The final and one of the most prevalent theories is that Amy killed her son, buried his body in an unknown location, and then killed herself to be with him. In the notes she left, she states that Tim is with people who love him and will take care of him. Many people believe that person is her and cite her possessiveness over him in their final days. Why would the woman who repeated that Timothy was hers and would never be taken from her leave him with another party? She took him on a trip,
True.
going to all of his favorite places before she decided to kill him, and did so in order to get revenge on her husband. The theory goes further to state that she lied about what happened to Tim to either give her family false hope that he is still alive or to further hurt them and never provide closure. But as it stands now in the year 2022, we have no idea, and it feels as if we are no closer to knowing what truly happened to the young boy. As stated in the intro, in 2019, a person came forward stating that he was Timothy Pitson and that he had escaped from his kidnappers, but he was later revealed to be 23-year-old Brian Michael Reaney, a man who had just been released
Wild.
from prison less than a month prior to his claims. This
What?
devastated the Pitson family, who had been led to believe their relative had come back from the abyss. According to Reaney, he had watched a television special about Timothy and pretended to be him because he wanted a second chance at growing up, this time with a family that loved him. He claimed that watching James Pitson plead for his son's safe return made him want to be Timothy because, quote, if he
That's
had gone
so
missing,
sad.
his dad
What
would
a
have kept drinking.
dick.
Though this
Like,
hoax was devastating,
it's sad.
it did have
It's
the added
so
benefit
sad
of putting
that,
Timothy's
like,
name back in the
his
spotlight
life is so bad that
and
he had to
garnering
come
more public
to
attention
that?
for the missing child. This is the latest age-progressed photo of
geez
Timothy,
Louise,
and it
he
is
looks
my
so
hope
much
that
like
one
somebody
day
that
we
I
see
grew
this
up
case solved. If you have made it to this point in the video, thank you for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more content. And if there is a case you want to see me cover, leave it in the comments down below. I will see you in the next video, and remember, stay safe. If there is one basic fact of human behavior,
Okay, this is,
it
it's,
that
we're just going to
great
go straight into
acceptance
the
from
next
others.
video.
Psychologically,
It's this one.
we all seek to be part of some group and
Have you seen the new
assimilate
Orphan
to the
movie? I
societal
haven't.
norms around us, even if publicly we say we don't. Even counterculture movements have hierarchies, set styles, and certain group
I
practices
just need
that
to
people
count really
aspire
quickly,
to,
so
lest
sorry.
they look like a poser, simply adopting a look or interest to
three,
seem cool.
4,
Take, for example,
5,
nerd
6,
culture.
7,
Though nerds were often looked down upon prior to the 2000s, shows like Big Bang Theory, Doctor Who, and Sherlock brought a cultural renaissance
okay.
to the idea of being a nerd. Suddenly, the idea of being into stereotypically geeky subcultures was given a level of respect it otherwise wasn't, and culturally significant works were being gatekept. Unless you knew who played every single Doctor
was really
Who in
good.
the
I'll
show,
have to
or could
watch.
name
I've
every
heard
member of the Fellowship
that it
of the
was
Ring, you weren't
fun.
really a
Or,
nerd, and
you know what I
therefore
mean.
deemed a poser. This kind of gatekeeping is found in every kind of group in our society, and the effect it has only encourages the people within the group to assimilate more, learn everything they can, and never truly fight back with the commonly held opinions of the group. This kind of behavior isn't just kept to fandoms. It's widespreading and seeps into most interactions we have daily.
But
This basic phenomenon
I'm a lover
was
of
first
all
studied
things
back
horror.
in the 1950s in a test with a small group
I'm
of people.
big time
The premise
goth
was
girl
simple. A group of 8
vibes.
people were placed in one room. 7 of those people were involved with the study.
I wasn't
while the
expecting
remaining
much, but it
person
pleasantly
was a
surprised
genuine
you.
participant,
Is it
unaware
streaming
of
on
what they
anything?
would be tasked with. The group was shown 4 different lines, and then they were asked to state which of the lines were the same length. The undercover participants would go first and give the same obviously wrong answer in front of the group. Then, finally, the real participant would be asked which lines are the same length, and more often than not, in order to assimilate with the group, despite knowing the answer was wrong, they would agree with the group. This same behavior can manifest in many different ways, pretending to like something you don't, or feigning knowledge about a subject matter you don't have, and in today's
used to do
case,
that so
lying about the
bad.
details of a horrific crime, just because you think it's what the officer would like to hear. Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first time here, welcome. Today we are going to be covering the case of Victoria Martins, a little girl who had so much more life left to live, and the complicated confession her mother gave, which has since been proven false. This video came highly
So now we're on
requested by one of our
sixes.
first
Let's
patrons,
go.
Adrienne Perez. And for
Not, but
good
there's
reason.
free HD
This
streams
video
around.
does cover the death of a child.
But I'm in Australia,
if
so
that is not
unsure if it's
something
streaming
you can
anywhere
manage
in
at
the
this
US.
time,
I'm in
please feel
Canada,
free to click off
so
of the
less
video
stuff
now,
here
as your
than the
mental
US.
health and
Not really
well-being
less
is
stuff, just more
important than any
Canadian
watch
focused
time
stuff and less like
demographic.
American
Because of the
focused
nature
stuff.
of the crime, this video
Not to
was
say that there isn't
demonetized
some
by
of
YouTube,
it
but
all,
we have
right?
been able to lock down a sponsor. This video is brought to you by Babbel. Babbel is a language learning app that teaches you using real-world, practical applications, which allows your mind to process and learn information quicker. It has quick, 10-minute interactive lessons that leave you smarter in a shorter amount of time. And its award-winning technology has been shown to get
Is
users
Babbel
speaking
better
a
than
new language
Duolingo
in
these
just
days?
3 weeks'
I
time,
love
which makes it
Duolingo.
perfect for anyone who plans on traveling to new places and doesn't want to rely on translation apps their entire journey. As someone who struggles with dyslexia and has a hard time learning through strictly written media, I found that their variety of lessons allowed me to pick an avenue of learning that worked best with me, as I could choose behind videos, games, podcasts, and more.
God.
I fucking love living in Canada, Dexter. I have to go back to Iowa this month, actually, for a little while,
Damn.
but I should be able to come right back after 2 weeks.
Кто?
Is this
Being
the
able to hear the
Babelfish
words
or
I'm
whatever
learning in
successor?
real
I
time
think so,
with
yeah.
context gives them more weight and helps me latch on to learning in a way that I wasn't able to when I tried to learn other languages in the past. It provides a real-world style of learning, which is more practical than what's in academia, leading to better knowledge retention. Through using Babbel, I have been able to start researching cases that have only been covered by other countries' media. I started with Russian cases, which are rarely reported on, but I also plan on learning Spanish. There's a ton of interesting cases that I haven't covered all over the world, but Western media has only covered a small portion of it. So if I wanted to talk about certain cases, I would be vastly limited. If you're looking to broaden your horizons or just looking to impress those around you, I highly recommend Babbel for learning a new language. Luckily, they have partnered with my channel to give Dreading listeners 65% off
Hell
by
no.
using the link in the description
Hell
box
no.
down below. That is 65%
No, it was
off
a hell yeah.
just by
I
using
did
the
put
link
it in this-
down
in
below.
the right
They also
stitch.
have a 20-day
think it
money
depends
back
how you
guarantee,
learn and
meaning
maybe
if
what
you,
language you're
for whatever
learning.
reason, don't like their
I'm doing
service
French
or
and
don't like the
Latin
vast
right
amount of
now.
the course, you can get a full refund, making it a risk-free investment
But
in
I've
your
been
own future.
severely
Again, I
neglecting
can't
my
recommend
Latin, to
Babbel
be
enough,
perfectly
and I
honest.
cannot thank them enough for partnering with me on my channel.
I
With all
hate
that
French,
said,
but
let
it's
us
the one
begin.
that's the most immediately useful to me now that I live in
In her
Canada.
10 short years of life, Victoria Martins had
What a
gone
sweet
through
little
more than most
baby.
people
Look
do
at
in their
her.
entire lifetime. Victoria was born
Looking at
August
their little
23rd,
faces fucking
2006,
breaks
in
me,
Albuquerque,
dude.
New Mexico, to her mother, Michelle Martins. She was a smart, energetic young girl who loved swimming and gymnastics and often talked a mile a minute. Victoria was an active member in her local church.
Basically,
so much so that her
hallucinate. It will
birthday
help me
was
to
going be
understand a lot
celebrated
more
by the
languages
pastor
and
of her
like,
congregation.
yeah, all the
She
like
lived in a small
demonic and
apartment with
biblical
her mother
stuff
and her
because
younger
that's like my
half-brother.
whole shit.
And for the majority of her young life, they lived together happily. She was constantly on the go and making friends wherever she went. But things began to change in March of 2016. Prior to 2016, Michelle Martins prided herself on being an all-around, dedicated, and loving mother. She made sure to put her kids before herself always, and made it a point not to drink. That way, she would always be at their beck and call. She worked hard to provide for her children. However, all that would change as Michelle began to start dating. As mentioned previously in our videos, many pedophiles and abusers will often use single parents so they can get access to their children. This often presents itself with single mothers being groomed by men, love-bombed to excess, and then told that no one else will ever want to be with them because of their child. At
11.
first, they will be told by said predator that they love their child and have always wanted a family. They will go to extreme lengths to show their dedication, often taking the kids on expensive
I've always wanted to
trips,
learn Latin and
paying for
Japanese,
gifts,
but
and
never
showing
could
up
motivate
for the
myself.
parent in incredible
I
ways.
think-
They will present as the dream partner, loving and affectionate. That way, if any claims
I think
were
that
made
Duolingo
against
makes
them,
learning
they will likely not
languages
be
really
believed.
fun. I can't
After
say anything
the
about
excessive
Japanese. I've
love
never really
bombing,
had
the
any
predator
interest
will make
in
the
any of the
parent feel
Asian
unwanted,
languages.
ugly, and as if they
So
are
far, not to say that I'm
unfavorable
not.
because of their
I'm kind of a
children,
language
so they
nerd
should
as it
settle
is.
for
Like
the
I really like
predators' more
languages. I
negative
took German in
behaviors
high
and the
school
red
and fucking
flags
loved it.
towards their child.
Crushed it.
They
Did
will
really
tell the
well at
parent
it.
They are crazy, that they are seeing things.
And it's just
that
always
aren't
been
there.
something that
And
I
it's this
pick up
kind of
really
behavior
easily.
that will keep
However,
them from settling
Duolingo
down
kind of
and finding
gamifies
someone
it,
else.
right?
This
And
grooming
makes it
and
really, really
psychological
fun.
abuse of the single parent
Necronectar, thank
leads
you so
them
much for
to
the
relying on
follow.
the
I
predator
appreciate
and
it.
ignoring obvious signs of grooming going on with their child. In many cases, the parent will look over blatant red flags and go so far
Dexter,
as to
you've gotta
ignore
come visit
direct
me in
claims
Canada.
from their child because they want to be loved and fear the predator.
Haven't heard
leaving.
that shit in
They
like
will
15
downplay
years, yeah.
claims against them, saying things
I used
such
to-
as
I used to
"It was
definitely
just a
use Babbel
friendly
as a
hug.
resource a
He
lot."
didn't mean to, and you're the pervert for thinking otherwise." Frequently, the family will become reliant on the predator's finances and feel unable to leave because they won't be able to take care of themselves without them. This can happen to both men and women, and the want to be loved is one of the easiest things for predators to exploit. And that is certainly true in this case. Prior to 2016, Michelle had been working at the chain baby supply store, Bye Bye Baby, for an unknown amount of time. It was there where she met her ex-boyfriend, David Hernandez, and it should be unsurprising that David is a pedophile. In 2012, one of David's relatives accused him of sexually assaulting her and another relative
And then how
when
many
she
rows
was
of
just
18?
5
We
years
need to
old.
do 3
The other
rows, so
relative
we'll leave
went
this
on
one
to commit
here,
suicide,
use this
which
one.
she stated was caused by the mental anguish that the assault took on them. At the time of the assaults, David would be 16 years old. The relative who accused David of assault didn't file criminal charges, however, did want his transgressions against her on police records. Later on, in 2013, David would go on to kidnap a 4-year-old girl from an apartment complex. He grabbed the girl, forced her
Hi,
into his
Will.
car,
How are
and then
you?
attempted to speed away from the scene. The girl's mother witnessed the kidnapping and pursued him in her own vehicle in an attempt to stop him from taking her child. She plowed her car into his. Her daughter, thankfully, had been pushed out of the car prior to the crash and was entirely unharmed. David, for his part, ran away from the crash on foot, although he left the car's registration
you,
and his own
Lycan.
birth certificate at the scene. Despite
How's
the
the crochet
fact
going?
that
It's
David had
hard.
been physically seen and identified
It's very
by
hard.
the mother
I'm like,
and daughter
this is
in
my
this
first time
incident,
really
used his own
giving
car in the
Megurumi a
commission of the
shot,
crime,
and
physically
I'm
left his
modifying
birth
the
certificate
pattern,
at the
which is
scene,
maybe a
and
little
would go on to
ambitious.
turn himself over to the police the day after. He would never be brought to justice.
569-day
Instead, the case was
Duolingo
dismissed
streak achieved.
twice.
Holy
First time
shit.
because the judge on the case suppressed key evidence, including
Well,
an
things have been
interview
rough around
with the
here,
child
but
victim in
being
which
around
she
chat has
identifies
been
David.
really nice.
The case was later refiled in 2015.
Today and
but
yesterday.
dismissed again after a separate judge determined that David's right to a speedy trial had been violated, meaning that despite attempting to kidnap a 4-year-old girl, he faced no legal repercussions in the slightest, which meant that when he, a noted pedophile who kidnapped a child, applied to work at a baby supply
streak
store,
is nice,
he was
yeah.
hired. Michelle was tasked
It's
on
the
training
only thing that
David
gets
in
me
the
to do it
stroller
some days.
department, and it was there that they began their relationship. She began to see David outside of work and brought him around Victoria and her son. He almost immediately moved into her apartment with her kids, who were the same ages that he had abused in the past. How long their relationship lasted has not been made public.
How
But
you
on
ain't
March
gonna vet
28,
your boyfriend before
2016,
moving them in
the
with
New
your
Mexico
children?
Children, Youth, and Family Department received a complaint from an anonymous source regarding Michelle and David. The following is the report that was made. A source called SCI stated that Michelle Martins voluntarily disclosed to the reporting party that Miss Martin's former boyfriend previously attempted to kiss her daughter Victoria. The reporting party stated that Miss Martins had immediately broken up with the ex-boyfriend and that he no longer had any access or contact to Miss Martins.
Oh, you're
and her
finally moved
family.
in.
The reporting
Oh, that's
party
wonderful,
stated
Dex.
that
Or, well,
Victoria did not make any
not you're
disclosures
moved in. Your
of
friend is
physical
moved in
sexual
with you.
abuse.
I
The information provided
remember.
to SCI by the reporting party indication that the former boyfriend was not a biological parent, guardian, or a custodian of Victoria, therefore did not fall within CYFD's abuse and neglect jurisdiction, as is provided for in NMSA 1978, sections 32A42B and F. SCI, pursuant to policy, did not send the allegation to an investigator with the Prospective Services Division because the matter fell outside of CYFD's legal authority to investigate. And just like his kidnapping charge, his first attempt to kiss Victoria was ignored completely by the men and women whose job it was to protect the kids in the area. According to the claim, Michelle was incredibly open about the fact that David had attempted to kiss her daughter, but maintained that she had immediately broken up with him and kicked him out of her apartment after the fact. It should also be noted that the claim against David to the New Mexico Children, Youth, and Families Department was not made by Michelle, though multiple sources have said as much. According to the documents
I'm
themselves,
working with really
a third
tangled up
party made
yarn,
the
so I
claim.
have to kind of
However,
unwind it as I
during
go.
the same time period, Michelle would contact the department 3 separate times, making negative reports against her son's biological father for things like bad hygiene and leaving the child alone with an unknown caretaker. None of the reports she made herself had anything to do with Victoria, sexual abuse, or protecting her daughter. Instead,
Look
it
at
appeared
this
that she
fucking
used
thing.
the department as
It
a
looks
way
like
to
a
hurt her son's
cocoon.
relationship
Or like a
with his
spider's
father,
egg
as the
sac.
investigations into him showed no signs of neglect. Michelle seemingly viewed her relationship with David and his attention to her daughter as a small hiccup in her road to love, and soon she would be back in the saddle, this time with another man who had less than pure intentions. Fabian Gonzalez
So
met
this bitch
Michelle
just,
on
like,
the dating
attracted
site Plenty of Fish,
pedophiles.
and like she had with David, she immediately moved him into her apartment. Fabian had been dating Michelle for less than 1 month and had already made himself at home in her apartment, so much so that he often invited friends over to do meth when Michelle was at work and the kids were
So
at school.
cool.
Like David before him, Fabian was a criminal, though he had been prosecuted for his crimes. In 2001, Fabian had been charged with assault against his
Just
former
throw some
girlfriend
googly
after
eyes on it,
viciously
yeah.
attacking her. He was given a plea deal for the charge, which resulted in him pleading guilty to 2 misdemeanor charges. In accordance with his deal, he got 2 years supervised probation. According to his police
Okay, so
record,
that's
he
row
was also
1
charged
down.
with felony child abuse, though the details on that case have not been made public. Driving while intoxicated and resisting arrest. Though he had a long criminal history and was supposed to be on probation, his case fell through the cracks, as the Department of Corrections failed to file the correct paperwork in his case. So just like David, he got away scot-free with nearly all of his crimes. Michelle purported not to know any of Fabian's criminal history before the relationship. However, how
I
true
just
that
don't
is
understand how
remains
these
to be
mothers
seen.
ain't
At the
vetting
very
these
least,
dudes. I don't
Michelle
get
knew that her
it.
new boyfriend enjoyed doing drugs in her home with other people, often
You're a
returning to
mother.
find the entire apartment destroyed in his drug-addled frenzy.
I don't
Michelle's
judge you
parents
for
would
wanting
attest
to
the
date. I
fact
don't judge
that
you
prior
for
to her
falling for shitty
association with
people,
Fabian,
but I
she
do
had
judge
never
you for
used
letting
drugs.
these people near
They
your
provided her a
children.
drug test with her new employer from the beginning of August as proof of their claims, but it seemed by August 10th, after Fabian had moved in with her, she had begun to use meth with him, often not caring if she did it in front of her children
health
or
can
not.
be a bitch.
The relationship
Especially,
progressed
like, just
rapidly,
the need
and by
for
August 15th,
attention,
Fabian
right?
had offered her apartment as a place to stay to his cousin, Jessica Kelly, after she was released from prison. Kelly, like Fabian and David, had a long
I don't
criminal
really need to
history,
count.
with her being in and out of prison for about
this
a
can just
decade
go
at that
pretty
point.
quick
She
here.
had 2 felony drug convictions, as well as a charge for conspiracy to commit rape on her record.
Jessica Kelly has been in and out
Okay.
of jail and prison for more than a decade. One
What?
of her convictions, taking part in the sexual
Wait, did I
assault
just-
of a fellow inmate while behind
did.
bars at the
What a
Metropolitan
loser. I'm an
Detention
idiot.
Center.
Why didn't Jessica Kelly have to register as a sex offender?
Jessica Kelly's conviction for conspiracy did not qualify for the sex offender registry under the law.
Target 7 got our hands on the police report in
Okay.
that case. It says the victim was hiding under a bed, trying to get away from Kelly and another inmate. The report says Kelly grabbed the victim out from under the bed, then stood at the doorway keeping watch while another inmate assaulted her. Kelly was convicted of conspiracy, but not the sex assault itself. And we found legislation from 2015 where some lawmakers tried to pass a bill that would have required people convicted of conspiracy to commit rape be required to register as a sex offender. It didn't pass.
In 2015, we stood up and supported expanding the sex offender registry. but unfortunately that bill died in the Senate.
A second suspect in Victoria Martin's death, Fabian Gonzalez, also had a long criminal history. Court records show in 2015 he pled no contest to battery against a household member and abandonment of a child. He was supposed to spend 2 years on supervised probation, meaning he would have been drug tested and would not have been allowed to live with another felon, like his cousin, Jessica Kelly. But the Department of Corrections says Gonzalez fell off the radar because they never got the paperwork on that case.
We were not made aware of that plea agreement.
A district court spokesman maintains the court did send that email and says it was delivered. The Corrections Department says it now has a new system in place with a staffer dedicated to reviewing every case every day when there's a plea deal.
Legally, had the Department of Corrections filed the correct paperwork and Fabian had been monitored by a probation officer, Kelly would not have been allowed to live with Gonzalez. But because of the oversight, no thought was given to the living situation. And it's because of that reason that Victoria Martins would be killed in such a horrific
It looks like a little
fashion.
mermaid tale.
8 days
I'm
after
excited
Jessica
about it.
Kelly had been released from prison and moved into
I'm a
Michelle
little bit
Martin's
tempted to do
apartment,
one
this
more
911 call was made at 4:30 a.m.
And the guy's at our door saying he's
Switchback.
Oh my god.
What's happening?
There was a lady that's pretty beat up.
I'm sorry?
Going this way before, like, going up to make one more do the other way, too.
No, there's a...
Plus grammar that makes sense.
Oh, there's a girl.
I'm a language nerd.
I don't know, but this girl's bleeding really bad. There's a little girl inside the house.
How old?
How old is your daughter? 10. Oh, yeah.
See you later, like a biker.
Is she awake?
Thanks for dropping in.
No, she doesn't know. It's the other individuals inside her house.
The neighbor had been alerted to a fight that had seemingly taken place between Michelle and Fabian, as he was sporting a black eye and Michelle had a large gash in her face between her eyebrows.
Okay.
According to both Michelle and Fabian, Jessica had assaulted them with an iron. She was bleeding profusely and informed the neighbor that her daughter, Victoria, was still in the home with Jessica. She also mentioned that there was smoke coming out of one of the apartment windows where the bathroom was, and it seemed as if someone had started a fire. Michelle told the neighbor that her daughter was in the house with another individual and that she didn't know who
That's
Jessica
awesome,
was. That
Dex.
was likely because at the time
I started
she was
again.
high. Shortly after the call
I'm
was
the
placed,
worst.
police arrived and found
I'm proud of
Fabian
you,
and
though.
Michelle
That's amazing.
outside, and Jessica still inside the apartment. All three individuals were on drugs and currently high. The police called into the building, but Jessica bolted the door, and then, trying to escape, jumped off the balcony onto the ground below. This resulted in her fracturing her ankle, preventing her from being able to run. The police, not knowing what was going on, immediately took her into custody and began to question her outside of the complex. The following video is from KRQE and will be linked below.
Come here. Come here. Come here.
I didn't do nothing.
Come here.
If it wasn't for surgery, I probably wouldn't have made it. I think you would have, but less surgery anyway.
Hey, stop.
In the video, police confront Kelly, who is limping after jumping off a balcony.
Why'd you lock the door?
Somebody just started a fire and went over the balcony, dude.
APD officers were there initially that night after a call about a fire at the apartment where Victoria Martins lived with her mother, Michelle, and her mother's boyfriend, Fabian Gonzalez.
What were you fighting about?
She woke up and asked where her daughter was.
Uh-huh.
I don't know where she's at, dude.
Okay. No, we got her. She's in another apartment.
Huh?
Did you hit her? Did you hit her?
Huh?
Did you hit somebody?
She hit me and I hit her back.
Police say Kelly was on a meth binge that night, when Michelle Martins and Gonzalez, who is Kelly's cousin, left her alone in the apartment.
I have
with
to
Victoria
concentrate for
earlier
just
in
a
the
second, so
evening
I'm not going to
before
hear
Victoria
or
was
see
strangled,
anything.
dismembered, and set on fire. As one officer talks to Kelly to get her side of the story, a couple of other officers go into the apartment, not knowing what they'll find. When they finally come out, their demeanor is changed. They seem upset.
Put it in your car, man. You're gonna walk.
Broken. I just got thrown off the balcony.
You didn't get thrown off. You jumped off. I saw you close the door.
The officers then get a call from dispatch.
Can you advise what we're looking at here? Male, female, cautious breathing?
Walk.
This poor baby.
No!
Before they reach the officer's car, Kelly tells them there was another person with her in the apartment.
Who else was in the apartment with you?
Another guy.
Ow.
Where's the other guy?
He
Poked
took off.
myself.
He started trying to wipe blood up. And I started panicking.
the other guy?
I don't know his name. They call him Cote.
According to Jessica, Michelle had woken up and lashed out at her because she didn't know where Victoria was. Michelle had hit Jessica first, and then she hit her back, resulting in the deep cut on her face. It also appeared she hit Fabian as well, but notably, she remained unharmed, save for her fractured ankle. While one officer spoke to Jessica outside, 2 other officers entered the apartment looking for Victoria. What they found was horrifying. Upon entering the apartment bathroom, the officer found the dismembered body of 10-year-old Victoria Martins still smoldering in a blanket. She had been strangled to death, stabbed, and dismembered, prior to being wrapped up and set on fire. The scene was horrific, and the responding officers have stated that it is by far the worst crime scene they had ever stumbled upon.
What happened to this little girl? It's horrific.
They exited the building swiftly to call a crime scene unit to the complex.
That's so sick.
And Jessica, being the only person who had been in the apartment when they arrived, was seen as the guilty party immediately. When they asked her what had occurred, she stated that she had been in the apartment babysitting Victoria when Fabian and Michelle were out, when a well-dressed Mexican man walked into the home and killed Victoria. Kelly claimed that this had been done because Fabian owed a drug debt to this unknown person, and when she jumped out of the second-story balcony, she had done so to escape this mystery person. Fabian and Michelle were likewise taken into custody, and they were both high and might have taken part in the crime, but no one could have predicted what would happen next. In the introduction to this video, we discussed and agreed upon the fact that most people will lie in order to assimilate to their environment. This general idea is known to most people. However, in true crime cases, many people ignore this concept as it can lend itself to false confessions, as interrogations are designed to apply pressure to whoever is sitting across the table from the interrogator. Small things like placing a person in a windowless room, leaving for long periods of time so they are isolated with their thoughts, placing the interrogator between the person and the door, and using duplicitous language are all done in order to increase the tension and mental taxation so the police can get a confession. Though this tactic has worked countless times and brought many killers to justice, it has also been used to get false confessions and implant false memories in people, thus skirting justice entirely. That is no doubt true in this case. Many people who have never been interrogated in conjunction to a crime have no idea the mental anguish it can put on you, and therefore feel as if false confessions do not regularly happen. They have a hard time empathizing
Duolingo worth the price. I did a few lessons to try it out, but it seems to be almost not needed from what I can see.
Because they believe they would never say something like that.
Duolingo
However,
Plus.
if you are put in an uncomfortable position for long
Because
enough,
I don't
it may
like
feel as
having
if
to
the
watch
only
the
way to
ads,
leave
and
the
I like
situation is to lie. Most people
doing
would,
the things
in
that
fact,
require
lie.
gems that
When
don't
Michelle,
require gems
Fabian,
without
and
it, but it
Jessica
isn't
were taken into
necessary at
custody,
all.
Jessica immediately lawyered up. She had the most damning evidence against her. She had locked herself in the home with the dead body, and she was seemingly the only person present when it was set on fire.
I have to count really quick.
Separately, Fabian was interviewed for 9 hours, maintaining his innocence the entire time, even though the police told him they had concrete proof he both raped and killed Victoria. Meanwhile, when Michelle was interviewed, she gave 3 alternate versions of events. Originally, she told the police that Fabian and her had been asleep in their room when Jessica came in, high on meth, and attacked both of them. She claimed she had no idea what had happened to Victoria at the time, and her and Fabian ran out of the house to the neighbors, who then called the cops. After that, the police left the room for a bit and came back, telling her that Fabian was in the other room, confessing to everything, and that they knew her story to be fake. They likewise alluded to the evidence at the scene not matching her version of events. This, of course, was not true. At the time, the police had no evidence to implicate either Michelle or Fabian, and evidence was still being processed. But the police didn't believe that such a grisly crime scene could have happened without Michelle and Fabian's involvement. Michelle then told the police a story that was incredibly similar to what Kelly had said when she was arrested. She stated that Fabian and her had left Victoria in Jessica's care while they went out to get drugs. While left alone with Jessica, Victoria accidentally took meth, overdosed, and died. She then stated that Fabian and Kelly tried to dispose of the body and threatened her life, saying that if she went to the police, she would be killed. Again, the police didn't buy this story. They believed that it didn't make any sense, that she had not been directly involved, and told her repeatedly that she was lying. They told her that she had sexually assaulted her daughter, that she enjoyed doing so, and that whatever happened to Victoria had been her fault. Due to the graphic nature of the crime, the police were obviously not satisfied with Michelle's previous version of events, no matter how true they had been. They refused to believe that she did not, in some way, take part in the crime, and so they continued to put pressure on her, asking her more leading questions about her involvement. To them, it was impossible that she had let these people be alone with her child without knowing what they were doing and taking part in some way. They told her that Fabian was confessing to everything in the other room, that he had told them about what she did, and that if she didn't confess, she would be sent to prison for the rest of her life. And Michelle, having never been in this situation before, tried to give the police what they wanted. Please note, I am not saying that Michelle is blameless in this crime. Michelle willingly put her child in harm's way multiple times by dating sexual predators and men who had criminal histories. She surrounded Victoria and her son with predators who sought to abuse them, and should absolutely be admonished for that. At the same time, she did meth in front of her children and put them in harm's way constantly. However, the police absolutely pushed her towards a false confession. Michelle cracked and told the police what she believed they wanted.
I have to count again.
She told
1
the
second.
police that she had sought out relationships with pedophiles for the express purpose of watching them have sex with her daughter, and that was how she met Fabian. She said she had allowed multiple of her exes to abuse Victoria while she watched, including David Hernandez, and she would often give her daughter drugs to, quote, calm her down before the assaults. Michelle then claimed on August 23, 2016, Victoria's 10th birthday, she had injected her daughter with meth in an attempt to calm her down so that Kelly and Gonzalez
Meth
could
does the
sexually
exact
abuse her.
opposite
She
of calm
claimed
you
she watched
down.
while they both raped, strangled, stabbed, and dismembered her daughter, taking sexual gratification for the entire ordeal. This was the sequence of events and confession that the police believed to be true, and led to Michelle, Fabian, and Jessica all being indicted on multiple charges.
Sorry,
Details
the
of the
ADD
confession
is
were made
kicking me
public,
hard right
and
now.
many
I have
news
to count
stations
again.
covered the graphic crime, reporting the confession as fact.
News 13 has obtained the interview that Michelle Martins gave police just hours after her daughter Victoria was murdered. In it, she tells police two stories, both making her out to be innocent in all of this before police finally get her to crack. And a warning, the details of this story are disturbing. Here's News 13's Marissa Lucero.
Dean Michelle
I just
Martin's
almost
interview
knocked
with
my fucking
investigators
shit
goes on
off
for
of
more
this.
than 100 pages before she finally tells police more than they ever thought they'd hear.
One of the most shocking crimes Albuquerque has ever seen.
What happened to this little girl? It's horrific.
The murder of 10-year-old Victoria Martins. News 13 has obtained pages upon pages of interviews
Poor
between
little
detectives
baby.
and Victoria's mother, Michelle, after her arrest. At first, she tells police she and her boyfriend, Fabian Gonzalez, were attacked in the middle of the night by Gonzalez's cousin, Jessica Cali, and had no idea what had happened to Victoria. Detectives didn't buy it and told Martins that her boyfriend was telling police everything. He wasn't. Then she claimed she and Gonzalez left Victoria at home with Cali, a convicted rapist who'd been staying with them for a week, and that Victoria had taken meth left on the table and died. So Gonzalez and Cali decided to try and dispose of the body and threatened to kill Martins if she called police. After hours of being questioned, Martins broke. She told detectives she'd watched Gonzalez and Cali sexually assault Victoria at least 3 times in the days before the murder. That's when one detective asked, quote, "This time she died, and you weren't ready for the type of animals these people were." Martins replied, "Yes, I should have stopped it." Then admitted she enjoyed watching men have sex with Victoria. Martin's parents insisted in an exclusive sit-down interview with News 13, this isn't the daughter they know.
We didn't know our daughter to be anybody that would do something like this.
This
And
one
if
is
there's
fucking
evidence and she's found
brutal.
guilty, then she deserves to be punished like
Just
anybody
like
else.
the other two.
She also admitted to letting 2 other men have sex with her daughter over the past 6 months or so. She named both of them. We asked APD if they'd been questioned. We haven't heard back. Back to you, Dean.
How the confession is covered is greatly important. as it is biased towards the final confession. To the press, who had already been made aware of the brutal way Victoria died, it's unthinkable that Michelle and Fabian wouldn't be involved in the murder. They mocked the idea that Michelle hadn't taken part and emphasized her confession, despite there being no other evidence. Because of the confession and the gory nature of the crime, reporting around the case blew up exponentially.
Yeah,
People were
I
shocked
agree,
and
Hallucinate. I was
disgusted
just
by what
thinking
had
the same
happened
thing.
and wanted to see all those
I was just
involved
thinking the
put to
exact
death.
same
Many
thing.
rallied around Michelle, Fabian, and Jessica getting the death penalty, especially because Fabian and Jessica continued to maintain their innocence. They both maintained they had not had sex with Victoria.
It
that they
isn't
had not
having
given her
sex
meth,
if
and
there's
Fabian
not
stated
consent
he had
on
not
both
been in the
sides.
home when she had been murdered.
There cannot be
Months later,
consent on both
Victoria's
sides
autopsy
if
would
one
come
side
out,
is a
which
child.
partially validated and discredited Michelle's statements. According to the autopsy, Victoria had died between 7:45 and 8:30 p.m. It was also found that at the time of her death, Victoria had a sexually transmitted disease, confirming sexual abuse of some sort. To most, this was all the confirmation they needed to say every part of Michelle's confession had been true. However, that same report would go on to state that when Victoria died, there had been absolutely no drugs in her system. Michelle giving her daughter meth had been a massive part of her confession, and one of the only things she admitted to taking part in. Many thought that the coroner's report was faulty. Some tried to discredit the coroner altogether, and others thought it was possible that part of the story was false, but believed the rest had been true. But it would not be until 2 years later that the truth would come out and change the entire narrative. On June 29th, 2018, nearly 2 years after Victoria's murder, District Attorney Raul Torres gave a press conference in which he made several astonishing announcements, which would completely turn this case upside down. Firstly, Torres stated that Michelle, the woman who had supposedly sought out men on the internet to sexually abuse her daughter and watch as two people she brought into her own home drugged, raped, and killed her daughter for her own sexual gratification, had accepted a plea bargain for 1 count of child abuse resulting in death. Torres then followed up that shocking statement by saying that most of the details regarding the case that had been made public were simply not true, and were only believed because the police validated Michelle's third account of events, which was only given after hours of interrogation. According to Michelle's defense attorney, Michelle was a people pleaser, and after being told so many times that she was lying, that she had sexually abused her daughter and she witnessed the brutal killing, she told the police what they wanted to hear. She knew that what she was saying was false, but as the interrogation continued on for hours on end, that they wanted her to say things like she sexually abused her daughter and gave her drugs, and so she did. However, when Raul became district attorney, he began to express concern over the handling of the investigation and appointed an entirely new team of investigators to look over the crime, and they found shocking pieces of evidence that had been overlooked. One of the first things they found was that there was a partial
surprise.
unknown male
Shitty
DNA
police
sample
work.
left on Victoria's back when she
So
died.
weird.
The sample was believed to have most likely come from saliva, sweat, or skin cells, meaning the man who had left them there had to have been close enough to the 10-year-old prior to her death to leave bodily fluid on her. The sample did not match Gonzalez, nor did it match anyone already in the system, and led credence to Jessica's statements the night of the murder that an unknown male had assaulted Victoria at some point. Shortly thereafter, the new investigation team would find a bombshell piece of evidence showing
It's
there was
true, Sperry. They can hold you-
absolutely
they can
no
hold
way
you for up to
Fabian or
48
Michelle
hours,
had
I
taken
think?
part in the murder, and that was the couple's cell phone data. According to some sources,
But this is
data
why you
was collected
always
shortly
immediately
after Victoria's
say,
death,
am I being
meaning that the
detained?
original
Am I free to
investigation
leave?
was well aware of it and simply
Then I'd like
ignored it,
my
as
lawyer,
it
no further
discredited Michelle's
comment.
statements. According to the initial autopsy, Victoria had died between 7:45 and 8:30 p.m., and due to the brutal nature of her death, it is safe to assume the assault that took place prior would have started sometime after 7 p.m. But, according to Fabian and Michelle's cell phone records, they were not in the home when the assault occurred, and instead were at another person's house, buying drugs. The only person who was in the home was Jessica, and potentially a mystery fourth male suspect. The police then publicized the believed movements of Victoria, Fabian, Michelle, and Jessica the day of the murder, based on both eyewitness testimony and cell phone records. 4:25 p.m. Victoria
Okay, we're back
Martins
on
gets off the bus
fours
and goes
now.
home. Michelle and Fabian aren't present at this time. It's believed she either walks home or is driven
How
home
is that
by Jessica.
true?
5:07 p.m. Michelle and Fabian return to the apartment. 6 p.m. Jessica gets on a call with her sister, who also uses meth, and states that she is tweaking and seeing things that aren't there. Her sister tells her to calm down, but nothing else comes of the call. 6:05 p.m. Victoria goes to the gas station with Fabian. 6:15 to 6:20 p.m. Victoria and Fabian return to the apartment. 6:30 p.m. Michelle and Fabian leave and go to Paradise Hills. 7:02 p.m. Michelle and Fabian return to the apartment. 7:05 p.m. Michelle is seen alive by the neighbors. 7:06 p.m. Michelle and Fabian leave again. 7:38 p.m. Michelle and Fabian are near Rio Bravo Boulevard and Coors Boulevard. 7:59 p.m. Michelle and Fabian are seen near 5 Points and Bridge Boulevard. 8:47 p.m. Michelle and Fabian arrive at the apartment. 8:48 p.m. Eyewitnesses say Victoria's body is seen being carried outside the apartment by Jessica. After Torres came forward about the DNA evidence of the unknown male and the timeline for the attacks, Jessica Kelly came forward with her own account of what had happened, and surprisingly, it matched exactly what Michelle had stated in her initial police interview. The following is Jessica's account as to what happened. Kelly stated that she had smoked methamphetamine for hours and had become increasingly paranoid in the hours before Victoria's death. She called her mother, said she had been messing up, and requested to go home. However, she doesn't recall how the conversation ended. Later on, she states, while she and Victoria were alone in the apartment, an unidentified man entered, asked for Gonzalez by his street name, Favo, then strangled Victoria in her bedroom over an unpaid drug debt. The unidentified man, who had a Mexican accent, then threatened Kelly and her children, and warned that she and Gonzalez needed to dispose of the body. The man left, leaving Jessica to dispose of the body alone. Later on, at 8:47, Michelle and Fabian
48 hours is a long time to undergo
leave their car for a while
an
as they
interrogation,
were
though. That
listening to
is
music.
literally
Jessica then
torture.
comes out of the
It's
apartment
torture.
carrying Victoria's
Just people
unconscious
telling you that
body
you're
in a
lying
blanket.
over and
She
over
sees
and over
Michelle
again.
and Fabian, then goes back inside. Shortly
not
after,
okay.
Fabian and Michelle go up
Cops
to
are
their
pieces of
apartment,
shit.
and Jessica tells
And they
Fabian
prove
that
it
Victoria
themselves
is dead.
all the time.
Michelle, however, does not hear, and Fabian goes to clean up the murder. In order to distract Michelle, he tells her to make them some dinner, which she does, not realizing anything is amiss. It's at this point when Jessica and Fabian go into the bathroom and begin to dismember Victoria, leaving pieces of her in the bathtub. Michelle, not knowing what was going on, or that her daughter has been killed in the other room, decided to go to sleep. After the pair felt like they had cleaned up the bathroom, save for the pieces of her body still in the bathtub, Fabian decided to go to sleep as well, climbing into bed next to Michelle. However, Jessica was still high and tweaking, and as time went by, she began to get more and more paranoid. She began to feel like she would be blamed for the murder, that Fabian and Michelle would turn on her since she was the one left in charge of Victoria, and the only logical way to avoid suspicion would be to kill her cousin and Michelle. That way, there would be no witnesses to the crime. As Fabian and Michelle were sleeping, Jessica got a clothing iron and attacked them, bashing both of their faces. Michelle and Fabian fought back and were able to get the iron away from Jessica, who continued to assault them, thinking they were going to turn her in. At this point, Michelle still didn't know what had happened to Victoria. She ran to a neighboring apartment and told them to call the police, believing her daughter to be in danger of Jessica. And it was only when the police arrived that she would be informed of the condition her daughter was in. According to the police who informed her, she showed no emotion and no response, which is why they believed she already knew and had taken part in her daughter's killing. This belief would lead them to overlooking a bevy of evidence and supporting an obviously false story of what happened to Victoria. As of today, Jessica Kelly pleaded no contest to her part in the murder of Victoria and was sentenced to 44 years in prison, although she could get as little as 22 years for good behavior. She maintains that she did not kill the 10-year-old girl, and instead blamed the death on the mystery man, pointing to the presence of an unknown male's DNA on her body in the original statement given to the police. Many believe that this is a miscarriage of justice, that Jessica alone killed Victoria, and that she should receive the death penalty. At time of recording, she is currently testifying against her cousin, and Fabian's trial is still ongoing. After the cell phone data was publicized and it was shown that Michelle had no part in her daughter's murder, Martins pled guilty to 1 count of reckless child abuse resulting in death and will be given a possible sentence of 12 to 15 years to be determined after
feel like-
Fabian's trial concludes. Again, many do not believe that she had
Within
no
the
part in
justice
crime,
system that we have in place, that's
specifically
what she
because
deserves.
of her third and final confession. What's notable in this case, and what's often overlooked, is the fact that Michelle's first 2 confessions,
You all
as well
already
as
know how I
Jessica's
feel about
story
the prison
the night
system.
of, were proven correct, despite the police's insistence. Originally, when asked about the events of the night, she stated that she went to sleep only to be awoken by Jessica high on meth, attacking her and Fabian with an iron. As far as she knew, she had been asleep during the murder, and that was, to the best of her recollection, what had happened. And this would go on to be proven correct. After being told that Fabian was corroborating with the police, she went into further detail about the day's events, maintaining that she had no part in the crime and that Victoria must have been killed while under Jessica's supervision, and she and Fabian must have tried to dispose of the body. Both of those confessions were proven to have occurred, but the police refused to accept them. Victoria's death was senseless, but the media circus that the original investigation turned the crime into is a travesty. Victoria was a beautiful young girl with an incredible future laid out in front of her. She was excited about her birthday party, set to be happening the following day, and her new kitty. She had a lovely life to be led and deserves to be remembered, not because of the spectacle her death became, but because of the joy she brought into every room she walked into. I want to thank Adrian Perez for recommending this case, as well as being a patron.
All
If
right.
you like this video, please consider leaving us a like, a comment, and subscribing, as it helps push our videos into the algorithm. If you want to support the channel, we do have a Patreon, where we publish our videos early. Again, thank you to Babbel for sponsoring our channel and continuing to support this content. I will see you all in the next video. Stay safe.
Okay, we're gonna call it. I definitely, I don't want to go into Chris Benoit. I don't know how to say his name. Benoit, maybe? Benoit? I'm not sure. I don't want to go into it. I don't have the energy to do another murder case right now. Hold a second. Hey, here we are. Hi. Okay, so I think that I'll be back tomorrow. I need to remember, let me look at this pattern. If any of you are here, help me to remember that I am starting row 21. There's a lot of shilling that I normally do. I don't really have the energy to do it. You're about to go for the day? Yeah, have a good day. Have a good day. Poetry Crow, we're just finishing up. I'm gonna find somebody to raid here. I would love if you would all be active in chat so that we can have like a big fat raid. You think it's Benoit? Benoit. Anyway, we'll get back to work on this. I feel like I finally have control over this piece now, so it shouldn't be so awful. But yeah, we want to do a big girthy boy, a nice thick raid. So if everybody could just say their favorite superhero in chat, that would be sick. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for hanging out. I will see you there. We're shooting for 8 p.m. my time, so 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. All right. I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out. Oh, no. Where is it? Stream is ending. There it is. I found it. We're good.